Paige's knees give out before she can stop herself. Her bag hits the marble floor first, the sound sharp and ugly. The courtroom freezes. She can't breathe right. Her hands grab for the witness stand rail, but her fingers slide off like her body forgot how to hold on. Grant doesn't move from his seat. He just watches, like she's a stranger, like she's performing. His face is blank, cold, the kind of nothing that cuts deeper than anger. Then Sloane laughs. It's too loud, too long. People turn to look at her, but she doesn't stop. She's been waiting for this, waiting for Paige to break. What if the person calling you a liar is the father of the child he's denying? Have you ever begged for the truth while people treated your pain like a performance? A billionaire husband, a public mistress, one pregnancy that won't end, plus a test that can ruin them all. Stay to the end because the DNA result isn't the only thing hiding in that envelope. Quickly, drop your country in the comments and tell me, should the judge read the results out loud? The judge's gavel comes down once. The bailiff steps forward. Paige's vision blurs. She hears her lawyer's voice somewhere to her left, but the words don't land. All she can feel is the pressure in her belly and the weight of every eye in the room treating her collapse like entertainment. Now rewind to the first lie that brought them here. Disclaimer: this story is a fictional dramatization inspired by common real-life relationship, paternity, and family court disputes. Names, locations, and details are changed for privacy. This video is not connected to any real person, case, or original creator. It's written as new, original storytelling. For YouTube monetization, channels are expected to add original value and avoid reused, mass-produced content. Viewer discretion advised. Emotional manipulation, betrayal themes, pregnancy, and medical stress. Reddit. Paige didn't faint because she was weak. She fainted because someone made sure she'd be alone when the pressure hit. The courtroom opened at 9. Paige walked in with her lawyer and a support person from her church. Grant sat 3 rows ahead with his team, expensive suits lined up like armor. Sloane sat behind him, close enough to whisper if she wanted to. She wore white. Of course she wore white. The judge called the session to order. Paige's name echoed through the room. She stood, and that's when the first contraction hit. Not labor. Not yet. Just her body screaming that it couldn't take much more. She was overdue. Everyone could see it. Her belly was so round that walking felt like dragging weight through water. Grant's lawyer stood first. He didn't waste time. He called Paige unstable. He said she was desperate for money and attention. He said her pregnancy timeline didn't match the separation. He painted her as a woman who would lie to trap a man she couldn't keep. Paige gripped the edge of the table. Her lawyer squeezed her wrist once, a silent reminder to breathe. But then Sloane laughed again, and the sound sliced through the room like glass breaking. Type, I understand, if you've ever been doubted in your worst moment. Paige's memory flashed back to the charity gala 6 months ago. Grant's hand on her lower back, warm and possessive. Cameras flashing. Sloane standing too close on his other side, smiling at the press like she belonged there. Grant leaning into Paige's ear, whispering something soft, something that should have meant safety. But his hand left her back the second the cameras stopped. In public, he held her. In private, he forgot she existed. The judge asked Paige to approach the stand. She stood too fast. The room tilted. Her lawyer called her name. Paige took one step, then another. Her vision went gray at the edges. She could hear her heartbeat in her ears, louder than the murmurs around her. Then her knees buckled. The bailiff caught her before she hit the floor. Someone called for water. Paige's hands shook as she tried to sit up. She looked across the room at Grant. His face didn't change. Not worry, not fear, just nothing. Sloane leaned forward in her seat, still smiling. The judge called for a 10-minute recess. Paige's lawyer helped her to a chair in the back hall. A medic checked her pulse and blood pressure. Everything was elevated. Everything hurt. Paige wanted to scream, but she swallowed it down because she knew that's what they wanted. They wanted her to look crazy. They wanted her to give up. When they returned to the courtroom, Paige's lawyer stood and said the words that changed everything. Your Honor, We're requesting a prenatal paternity order. Today. The room went quiet. Grant's lawyer objected immediately, but the judge raised a hand to silence him. Paige watched Grant's face. For the first time that morning, something flickered in his eyes. Fear, maybe, or guilt. Sloane stopped smiling. Grant's wedding ring still fit, even while he tried to erase the marriage. The separation started 4 months before the court date. Grant moved out quietly, no big fight, no explanation that made sense. He just said he needed space. Paige thought it was stress from work. She thought he'd come back. Then the tabloids started talking. Pictures of Grant and Sloane at dinners, company events, at private airport terminals. The headlines called Sloane his right hand. Some called her more than that. Paige tried not to read them, but people sent screenshots. Friends, family, strangers on the internet who thought she deserved to know. Grant claimed they hadn't been intimate in months. He said it in legal filings, cold and clinical, like their marriage was a contract that expired. He said the pregnancy couldn't be his because the timeline didn't match. He built his entire defense on the idea that Paige was lying, that she got pregnant by someone else and tried to pin it on him for money. But Paige had receipts. Bank statements showing Grant's spending on hotels when he was traveling for work. Credit card charges at restaurants where Paige was never invited. And the timeline, Paige's lawyer mapped it out day by day, showed that Grant was home the exact weekend the baby was conceived. He might not remember it, but Paige did. Vote in one word. Love, money, or peace? What should Paige chase? Paige's out-of-state family sent money to cover the legal fees. Not a lot, just enough to hire someone who wouldn't fold under pressure. Grant probably assumed she'd run out of funding and give up. He didn't expect her to fight. She remembered the last night she tried to reach for him in bed. It was 3 weeks before he moved out. She slid her hand across the sheets, looking for his warmth. He turned away without a word. No explanation, no apology, just his back, a wall she couldn't climb. Paige lay there in the dark, stomach already starting to round, wondering if he could feel the baby move and just didn't care. In court, Grant's lawyer tried to make the separation sound mutual. But Paige's lawyer presented text messages. Messages where Paige asked what was wrong, where she begged him to talk, where he responded with one-word answers or nothing at all. The judge read them aloud. Grant stared at the table. Sloane checked her phone. Then Grant's lawyer said something that made Paige's stomach drop. My client admits he was not in full control of his actions during the charity event in Scottsdale. He was under significant stress and consumed alcohol to a degree that impaired his memory. He cannot confirm his location or activities for a 72-hour window following that event. Paige's lawyer leaned over and whispered, "He just gave us an opening." Grant admitted he was blackout drunk after the Scottsdale charity night. A billionaire with perfect control had 3 missing days. The Scottsdale charity gala was supposed to be routine. Grant's company sponsored it every year. Big donors, bigger egos. Paige went as his wife, wore the dress he picked, smiled for the cameras. She played her part, but something felt wrong from the start. Sloane was everywhere, adjusting Grant's tie, handing him drinks, laughing too loud at things that weren't funny. She stayed close, always in his line of sight, like she was managing him instead of working for him. Grant drank more than usual. Paige noticed but didn't say anything. He got defensive when she questioned his habits, so she stayed quiet and watched. By 10 o'clock, Grant was unsteady. Sloane offered to get him water. She led him toward the back hall near the bathrooms, her hand on his elbow, guiding him like he was a child. Paige watched from across the room, her stomach tight with something she couldn't name yet. Pause. Do you think he cheated, got set up, or both? Comment your guess. Paige wanted to follow them, but a donor pulled her into conversation. By the time she looked up again, Grant and Sloane were gone. He came home 2 days later. Not the next morning. 2 days. He said he stayed at a company apartment to sleep off the hangover. He said his phone died. He said Sloane arranged a car and he didn't remember much after leaving the gala. He said it like it was normal, like disappearing for 48 hours was just another work thing. Paige didn't believe him, but she didn't have proof. Not yet. What she did have was a memory that didn't sit right. The night Grant finally came home, he wouldn't look at her. He went straight to the shower. He stayed in there for almost an hour. When he came out, he smelled like hotel soap, not the body wash they kept at home. Paige asked where he'd really been. He said she was paranoid. He said pregnancy hormones were making her see problems that didn't exist. He turned away from her in bed again, and that was the last time they touched. 3 weeks later, he moved out. Now, in court, Grant's lawyer was trying to use the blackout as a shield. He couldn't remember, so he couldn't be responsible. But Paige's lawyer saw it differently. If Grant couldn't remember, how could he be so sure he wasn't the father? The judge agreed. During the recess, Paige pulled up her phone and checked her calendar. She cross-referenced it with her medical records. The conception window lined up exactly with the week after Scottsdale. Grant had been home, briefly, barely awake, but home. Paige remembered waking up sore that week. She blamed it on sleep position, on pregnancy aches, on stress. But now, sitting in that courthouse hallway, she wondered if her body remembered something her mind had tried to bury. Her lawyer came back with a folder. "We pulled your clinic records. Someone moved your appointment without your approval." The reschedule request came from an external number. Paige's blood went cold. What number? "We're working on it. But the timing matches the week after Scottsdale." Paige's hands started shaking. She thought about the nurse who wouldn't look at her during the last visit. The way the front desk hesitated when she asked for her chart. The doctor's strange tone when he told her to reduce stress. Like her fear was the problem instead of the proof. Paige discovered a clinic appointment moved without her approval. Paige said her name at the front desk, and the nurse flinched. It was small, just a quick tightening around her eyes, a hesitation before she typed. But Paige saw it. She'd been seeing it for weeks now. People treating her like she was contagious. "I'm here for my appointment," Paige said again, keeping her voice steady. The nurse stared at her screen, clicking through files that should have been right there. "I'm sorry, we don't have you scheduled today." Paige pulled out her phone. She had the confirmation email. She had the text reminder from 2 days ago. She turned the screen toward the nurse. The nurse glanced at it, then back at her computer. "That's strange. Let me check with the doctor." She disappeared into the back. Paige stood there, belly aching, legs tired, feeling like she was losing her mind. This was the 3rd time in 2 weeks. Appointments moved, records delayed, calls that didn't get returned. When the nurse came back, her tone had changed. Colder. "The doctor can fit you in, but you'll need to wait. Your file was misplaced." Hit like if you've ever felt someone was quietly trying to break you without leaving fingerprints. Paige sat in the waiting room and opened her phone. She pulled up her patient portal. Half her appointment history was missing. Lab results that should have been posted weren't there. Notes from her last visit had been edited. She could tell because the date stamp didn't match. She took screenshots of everything. When the doctor finally called her back, his voice didn't have the warmth it used to. He spoke to her like she was a stranger. He told her to reduce stress. He said her symptoms were normal for a high-risk pregnancy, even though he'd never called it high-risk before. Paige asked about the missing records. He said it was a system update. He said things get moved around sometimes. She didn't believe him. Her mind flashed back to early in the pregnancy. Grant's voice in the dark, his hand resting on her stomach. "We're safe," he'd whispered. His voice steady, certain. She'd believed him then. She'd let herself feel protected. Now that memory felt like a ghost. Something that used to be real but had no weight anymore. Paige left the clinic with more questions than answers. She sat in her car and called her lawyer. "They're touching my medical records," she said. "Someone is changing my appointments. Someone is making me look unstable." Her lawyer was quiet for a moment. Then, "We need to document everything. Keep taking screenshots. Don't trust anyone at that clinic." Paige hung up and stared at the building. She felt exposed, like someone was always watching, always one step ahead. She pulled up her portal one more time, scrolling through what was left of her records. That's when she saw it. A visitor log. It was buried in a tab she'd never opened before, something the clinic used for security tracking. She scrolled through the dates. Most were routine family members, partners, assistants. Then she saw the name. Sloane Harper. Logged in 3 weeks ago. Floor 3. OB wing. Paige's blood went cold. Sloane had no reason to be on that floor. She wasn't pregnant. She wasn't a patient. She had no connection to Paige's care. But she'd been there. Paige sees Sloane's name on a visitor log near the OB floor. Sloane didn't steal Grant's heart first. She took his calendar. Started small. 3 years ago, Sloane was hired as a temporary assistant during a product launch. She was sharp, fast, good at reading the room. Grant liked that she didn't need hand-holding. By the end of the month, he made her permanent. 6 months later, she was his executive assistant. She managed his schedule, screened his calls, sat in on meetings. She knew where he was every minute of the day. A year after that, she was VP of operations. No degree. No prior executive experience. Just proximity. Paige didn't notice at first. She was busy with her own work, trying to keep the marriage steady while Grant's company grew. But then things started to shift. Grant stopped telling Paige about his day. He stopped asking her opinion. When she'd call, Sloane would answer his phone and say he was in a meeting. Every time, Paige started to feel like she needed permission to talk to her own husband. Comment, control. If you've seen a relationship ruined by someone who managed access. Grant started speaking differently, too. He used phrases Paige had never heard him say before. Corporate talk. Cold, calculated. When Paige asked him about a decision, he'd repeat something word for word that sounded like it came from a script. It wasn't his voice anymore. It was Sloane's. Paige saw the way Sloane looked at Grant in photos. Not like a colleague. Not even like a mistress. She looked at him like he was a project. Something to manage. Something to own. Late one night, Paige went to Grant's office to drop off his forgotten phone. The building was nearly empty. She took the elevator to his floor, expecting to leave the phone with security. But the lights were still on in his office. Paige walked down the hall, her footsteps soft on the marble. She could hear voices inside. She stopped at the door, hand raised to knock. Through the glass panel, she saw them. Sloane stood in front of Grant, adjusting his tie. Her fingers moved slow, lingering on the fabric, then on his collar. She said something Paige couldn't hear. Grant didn't pull away. He just stood there, letting her touch him like it was routine. Sloane's fingers slid down the front of his shirt, stopping just above his belt. She smiled. He didn't. Paige's stomach turned. She backed away from the door before either of them could see her. She left the phone with the front desk and drove home in silence. That was 8 months before the separation. Now, sitting in her lawyer's office, Paige watched the timeline her legal team had built. Assistant to executive assistant to VP. Every promotion happened right after a major company milestone. Milestones where Grant was under stress, overwhelmed, vulnerable. She positioned herself as the solution, Paige's lawyer said. Every time he needed help, she was the only one there. Paige thought about all the nights Grant worked late. All the trips Sloane went on with him while Paige stayed home. All the times Grant said he was too tired to talk, too busy to explain. Sloane had been filtering his world, controlling who got access, shaping what information he saw, and slowly she'd rewritten the story of who Grant needed. Paige's lawyer handed her a printed email. We pulled this from a deleted folder. It's a draft. Never sent. Paige read it. The subject line said, Private wellness visit. Confidential. It was addressed to a concierge medical service. The appointment was scheduled for 2 days after the Scottsdale Gala. The request was signed with Grant's name, but the email came from Sloane's account. Paige finds a deleted email draft scheduling a private wellness visit for Grant right after the gala. Paige came to court with one document Grant didn't know existed. Her lawyer placed it on the table during a recess. It was a contract, not a marriage document, not a prenup, a surrogacy application. Grant's lawyer leaned over to read it. His face changed. Paige had applied to be a gestational surrogate 6 months before she got pregnant. She'd filled out the paperwork, gone through the medical screening, answered all the questions. She'd been desperate. Money was tight. Grant's company was bleeding cash into a failing venture, and he'd asked her to hold off on her own career plans to support the family. She never told him how scared she was. She never told him she'd looked into surrogacy as a way to keep them afloat without asking him for help. She also never signed the final contract. She'd backed out at the last minute. Not because she didn't need the money, but because something about turning her body into a transaction made her feel hollow. Be honest. Would you hide that contract or show it? Tell me why. Grant's lawyer tried to use it against her. Your Honor, this proves Mrs. Grant was willing to deceive for financial gain. This shows a pattern of... Paige's lawyer cut him off. This proves the exact opposite. My client explored legal, ethical ways to support herself when her husband's financial decisions put them at risk. She withdrew before proceeding. And the timing of this application is critical. The judge looked up. How so? The medical screening for surrogacy requires invasive fertility testing. Mrs. Grant's file from that period confirms she was not pregnant at the time of application. That was 5 months before the disputed conception window. It directly counters Mr. Grant's claim that this pregnancy is part of a premeditated scheme. Grant's lawyer sat down. Sloane leaned forward in her seat, jaw tight. Paige remembered the night Grant convinced her she didn't need to worry about money. He'd pulled her close in the kitchen, hands around her waist, his voice soft. You don't need to be a transaction, he'd said. You're my wife, not a business deal. She'd believed him. She'd withdrawn the surrogacy application the next day. Now she realized he'd said exactly what she needed to hear to keep her dependent, to keep her from having her own safety net. The judge reviewed the document, flipping through pages of medical history, financial disclosures, psychological evaluations. Then he looked at Grant. Mr. Grant, your team has argued that your wife fabricated this pregnancy for financial benefit. But this contract shows she had a legal path to financial relief months before conception, and she chose not to take it. Can you explain why she would reject guaranteed income only to pursue an uncertain paternity claim? Grant's mouth opened. No sound came out. His lawyer whispered something to him. Grant shook his head. The judge set the document down. I'm ordering the prenatal paternity test. Results will be sealed and delivered directly to this court. No one, no attorney, no party, no third party, will have access to those results until I open them in session. Paige's hands shook in her lap. This was it. The moment that would either prove her right or destroy her. Grant's lawyer made one last attempt. Your Honor, we request a delay to. Denied. This case has already seen enough delays. The test will be conducted within the week. We reconvene when the results are ready. The gavel came down. Paige exhaled. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath. Outside the courtroom, her lawyer squeezed her shoulder. You did the right thing. Showing that contract took guts. Paige nodded, but she didn't feel victorious. She just felt tired. Judge orders the prenatal paternity test and seals it for court delivery. The tabloids posted one picture, and Paige realized the war wasn't only in court. It was a photo of the mansion. The one Grant bought 2 years into their marriage. The one Paige had decorated, room by room, thinking it would be their forever home. In the photo, Sloane stood on the front steps, arms crossed, sunglasses on, looking like she owned the place. The headline read, New woman of the house? Grant's VP moves into marital home. Paige's phone started ringing. Friends, family, people she hadn't talked to in months. Everyone wanted to know if it was true. Everyone wanted to know if she'd seen it. She had. The article didn't stop at the photo. It went deeper. It said Paige had been unstable for months. It said she'd made threats. It said Grant's team had credible concerns about her mental state. It painted her as a woman who couldn't let go, who was using a pregnancy to trap a man who'd already moved on. None of it was true, but it was everywhere. If you hate smear campaigns, share the story with a friend who needs a warning. Paige called her lawyer. Where did they get this? Sloane's PR team. They're trying to control the narrative before the test results come back. Paige felt sick. She'd been so focused on the courtroom that she didn't realize the fight was happening in public. 2. Every tabloid, every gossip site, every social media comment section. They were burying her before she even had a chance to defend herself. Her mother's best friend called that night. "Baby, you need to be careful. This isn't just about court anymore. They're trying to scare you into settling. They want you to give up before the truth comes out." Paige knew she was right, but knowing it didn't make it easier. That night, Paige couldn't sleep. She opened her laptop and went through old files. Photos, videos, memories she'd saved when things were still good. She found a video from their second anniversary. They were in the kitchen making pasta from scratch. Flour everywhere. Grant laughing, flour on his cheek, his hands around her waist, pulling her close. The camera shook because Paige was laughing too hard to hold it steady. She watched the way he looked at her in that video, like she was everything, like he couldn't believe she was real. That man felt like a stranger now. Paige closed the laptop and sat in the dark. She wanted to hate him. She wanted to feel nothing. But all she felt was grief for the version of him that used to exist. The next morning, Paige got in the car to go to her lawyer's office. Her driver took a different route than usual. Paige noticed right away. "Why are we going this way?" The driver glanced at the GPS. It was updated in the system this morning. "New route." Paige's chest tightened. "I didn't request a new route." The driver frowned. "It says here it came from your account." Paige pulled out her phone and opened the car service app. The route change was logged under her name, but she hadn't touched the app in days. Someone had access to her account. Someone was changing her routes without her knowing. "Pull over," Paige said, voice shaking. "Pull over right now." The driver pulled into a gas station. Paige got out and called her lawyer. "They're in my systems," she said. "They're tracking me. They're changing my routes. I don't know who I can trust anymore." Her lawyer's voice was calm, but Paige could hear the concern underneath. "We're getting you a security detail today. Don't go anywhere alone." Paige's car follows a different route home. Driver says it was updated in the system. Paige never requested that. The same doctor who comforted her last month spoke like a stranger today. Paige sat on the exam table, paper crinkling under her legs. The doctor stood by the door, looking at his tablet instead of at her. His voice was flat, professional, like she was a problem to manage instead of a patient to care for. "Your blood pressure is elevated again," he said. "You need to reduce stress." Paige almost laughed. Reduce stress. Like it was that simple. Like she could just decide not to be terrified while her life fell apart in public. "I'm trying," Paige said. "It's just, everything is." "I understand you're going through a difficult time," the doctor interrupted. "But stress like this isn't good for the baby. You need to find ways to stay calm." He said it like it was her fault, like her body was failing because she wasn't trying hard enough. "Drop a receipts if you think Paige should document everything." Paige asked about her test results from 2 weeks ago. The doctor hesitated. "We're still waiting on a few things. You said they'd be ready last week." There was a delay in the lab. Paige didn't believe him. She called the lab herself. They said the results had been sent to the clinic 5 days ago. She pulled out her phone and opened her notes app. She started typing while the doctor talked. Date, time, what he said, what didn't match. The doctor noticed. "Are you taking notes?" "Yes," Paige said, not looking up. "I need to keep track of things." His expression shifted. Not concern. Something closer to annoyance. "Mrs. Grant, if you're feeling paranoid, we can refer you to." "I'm not paranoid," Paige said, louder than she meant to. "I'm paying attention." The room went quiet. The doctor set his tablet down. "I'm going to recommend you see a counselor. Stress management. It might help." Paige left the appointment shaking. She sat in her car and called her lawyer again. "He's trying to make me look unstable," Paige said. "He's suggesting I'm paranoid. He's delaying my results. Something is wrong." Her lawyer was quiet for a moment. We're going to request your full medical file. Everything. We'll get an independent review. Paige hung up and stared at the clinic building. She felt like she was losing her mind, but the facts kept stacking up. Appointments moved. Records missing. Doctors changing their tone. Someone was orchestrating this. Someone wanted her to look like she couldn't be trusted. Her phone buzzed. A voicemail. She didn't recognize the number. She played it. Grant's voice filled the car. Quiet. Rough. Paige, I miss your body. The message was from 3 weeks ago. She'd deleted it. But somehow it had been restored and sent to her again from an unknown number. Like someone wanted to remind her. Like someone wanted her to remember that Grant's public story didn't match his private words. Paige saved the voicemail. She forwarded it to her lawyer. Then she opened her notes app and typed, "Doctor pressuring me to see counselor. Suggesting I'm paranoid. Delaying results." Grant's voicemail contradicts his claims of no intimacy. She was building a case. Not just for court. For survival. That night, Paige's phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "Stop pushing the test." Paige's hands went cold. She took a screenshot. She forwarded it to her lawyer and to her new security contact. Then she locked every door in her house and sat in the dark, waiting for morning. Paige receives an anonymous message. "Stop pushing the test." Grant didn't raise his voice. He used silence like a weapon. The meeting was his idea. Neutral location. Attorneys present. Paige agreed because her lawyer said it might speed things up. They met in a conference room downtown, glass walls and corporate gray carpet. Everything felt cold. Grant sat across from her, hands folded on the table. He looked tired, older, like the weight of everything had finally caught up to him. "We can settle this," he said. "You don't have to keep fighting." Paige stayed quiet. Grant leaned forward. "I'll make sure you're taken care of. Money, support, whatever you need. But dragging this through court, it's not good for anyone." Paige's lawyer started to respond, but Paige spoke first. "You called me a liar in public. You said this baby wasn't yours. Now you want to settle." Grant's jaw tightened. "I'm trying to do the right thing. The right thing was believing me from the start." "Quick question. Would you meet him alone? Yes or no, no long story." Grant's lawyer cleared his throat. "My client is offering a generous package. We can have papers drawn up by—" "No," Paige said. Grant's face changed. The tired look disappeared. Something harder took its place. "Paige, you don't want to push this. I can make this ugly. You know I can." Paige felt her pulse kick up. Not from fear. From anger. "You already made it ugly. You put my face on tabloids. You called me unstable. You tried to make people think I was lying." "I'm trying to protect my company," Grant said, voice low. "My reputation. If you keep pushing—" "What? You'll ruin me?" Paige leaned forward. "You already tried. I'm still here." The room went quiet. Grant's attorney shuffled papers. Paige's lawyer put a hand on her arm. A silent reminder to stay calm. Grant stood up. He walked to the window, hands in his pockets. Then he turned and walked toward Paige. Her lawyer tensed, but Grant didn't do anything threatening. He just stood close. Too close. Paige could smell his cologne. The same one he always wore. The scent hit her before she could stop it. Memories flooded back. His hands on her waist. His mouth at her neck. The way he used to hold her like she was the only thing that mattered. She hated that her body remembered. She hated that her pulse reacted. "I'm not trying to hurt you," Grant said quietly. "I'm trying to end this before it gets worse." Paige looked up at him. Their faces were inches apart. She could see the lines around his eyes. The exhaustion. The regret he wouldn't say out loud. "Then stop lying," Paige said. "Stop pretending you don't remember. Stop letting Sloan speak for you." Grant's expression flickered. Just for a second. Like she'd said something that hit too close. Before he could respond, the conference room door opened. Sloan walked in. She didn't knock. Didn't ask permission. She just walked in like she owned the space. She looked at Paige, then at Grant, then back at Paige. "Am I interrupting?" Sloane's voice was smooth. controlled. Paige's lawyer stood. "This is a private meeting. Grant asked me to be here," Sloane said, not moving. Paige looked at Grant. "You invited her?" Grant didn't answer. He just stepped back, putting distance between himself and Paige. Like Sloane's presence reminded him whose side he was supposed to be on. Paige felt something break inside her chest. Not her heart. That had already broken. This was something deeper. The last thread of hope that Grant might still be the man she married. She stood and grabbed her bag. "We're done here." Her lawyer followed her out. As they walked down the hall, Paige could hear Sloane's voice behind them, low and satisfied. Sloane appears at the meeting location, like she was invited to police the conversation. Sloane laughed at the wrong time, because she already believed she'd won. Back in court, the room felt smaller than before. Paige sat at the plaintiff's table, her lawyer beside her. Grant sat across the aisle, Sloane 2 rows behind him. The judge reviewed documents while everyone waited. Paige felt another contraction. Not strong enough to panic, but strong enough to remind her that time was running out. Her body was ready to give birth. The courts were still deciding if the father would claim his own child. She pressed a hand to her belly and tried to breathe through it. That's when Sloane laughed. Not loud at first, just a quick exhale like something amused her. But then it grew. A full laugh. Too loud for a courtroom. People turned to look. The judge glanced up. Grant's lawyer looked back, confused. Paige's hands curled into fists. She knew exactly why Sloane was laughing. She thought Paige was putting on a show. She thought the contractions were fake. "If you want the judge to shut Sloane down, tap like right now." The judge set down her pen. "Ms. Harper, is there something you'd like to share with the court?" Sloane's smile didn't fade. "No, Your Honor. My apologies." But the damage was done. The laugh hung in the air like proof that Sloane didn't believe Paige, that she thought this was all an act. Grant leaned over and whispered something to his lawyer. Paige couldn't hear it, but she saw his mouth move. She read his lips. "She's acting." Paige's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client is 9 months pregnant and overdue. She's in active discomfort." The mockery from the defense's side is inappropriate and cruel. Grant's lawyer stood too. "Your Honor, my client has raised valid concerns about the timeline of this pregnancy. The theatrics don't change the facts." "Theatrics." Paige's voice came out louder than she meant. She stood, hands shaking. "You think I'm faking this?" The judge raised a hand. "Mrs. Grant, please sit." Paige sat, but the anger didn't leave. It burned in her chest, hot and sharp. Her lawyer leaned over. "Stay calm. Let me handle this." Paige nodded, but her mind was somewhere else. She was back on their wedding night. Grant's hands gentle on her skin, his mouth at her ear, whispering promises. "I'll never let anyone hurt you," he'd said. "You're mine. I'll protect you." She remembered the weight of his vow, the certainty in his voice, the way he held her like she was precious. Now he watched her suffer and called it acting. Paige's lawyer addressed the judge. "Your Honor, my client's credibility has been attacked at every turn. Mr. Grant claims he can't remember key events due to alcohol consumption, yet he's certain about what didn't happen. How can he be certain what happened if he admits blackout gaps?" Grant's lawyer opened his mouth to respond, but the judge cut him off. "That's a fair point. Mr. Grant, you've stated you have no memory of a 72-hour period following the Scottsdale event. Yet you've also stated with certainty that you could not be the father. How do you reconcile those two claims?" Grant looked at his lawyer. His lawyer looked at his notes. No one had an answer. The judge sat back. "I've heard enough. We're proceeding with the test results. Bailiff, bring in the envelope." The courtroom went still. Paige's breathing was the loudest sound in the room. She watched the bailiff walk to the judge's bench, carrying a sealed manila envelope. The paper looked ordinary, plain, but it held everything. The judge took the envelope and set it on the bench. The sealed envelope arrives in the bailiff's hands. The courtroom didn't go quiet for the judge. It went quiet for the paper. The envelope sat on the bench, sealed and unmarked except for a single label. Confidential court order only. The judge picked it up, turning it over once. She didn't rush, didn't build suspense. She just opened it like it was routine. But nothing about this was routine. Paige gripped the edge of the table. Her fingers dug into the wood so hard her knuckles went white. She couldn't breathe right. Every inhale felt too shallow. Every exhale too loud. Grant sat perfectly still across the aisle. His lawyer whispered something to him, but Grant didn't respond. His eyes stayed locked on the envelope. Sloane leaned forward in her seat, hands folded in her lap. She looked calm. Too calm, like she already knew what the results would say. Before it's read, comment your prediction. His or not his. The judge pulled out a single sheet of paper. She scanned it once, her face giving nothing away. Then she looked up. The results of the prenatal paternity test are as follows. Paige's heart slammed against her ribs. She felt her lawyer's hand on her arm, steadying her. The judge continued. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. The room erupted. Not loud, just a ripple of whispers and gasps. Paige heard someone behind her exhale like they'd been holding their breath the whole time. Grant's face drained of color. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked at his lawyer, then at Paige, then at the judge. His confidence cracked. All the certainty he'd carried into this courtroom, all the claims that the baby couldn't be his, gone. Paige didn't feel victorious. She just felt relief. Heavy, exhausting relief. She'd been telling the truth the whole time, and now everyone knew it. She pressed a hand to her belly, tears burning at the edges of her eyes. She didn't let them fall. Not yet. Her fingers curled around her wedding band. She still wore it. Even after everything, she couldn't take it off. She remembered the day Grant put it on her finger. The way he kissed her knuckles and said, "I'll never embarrass you. I'll never make you regret this." That promise felt like a lifetime ago. Grant's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, we'd like to request a recess to review." "Denied," the judge said. "I'm not finished." The room went quiet again. The judge looked at the paper one more time. "There's an addendum to this report." Paige's lawyer stiffened beside her. "Your Honor." The judge set the paper down. The lab flagged a genetic marker during the paternity analysis. It's not related to paternity confirmation, but it does indicate a potential hereditary condition that may require medical monitoring and long-term care. Paige's chest tightened. "What does that mean?" The judge's voice softened. "Just a little. It means the child or children, if multiples are confirmed, may need specialized care. The details are outlined in the medical addendum, which will be provided to both parties under seal." Grant's face went from pale to gray. His hands gripped the edge of the table like he was trying to hold himself upright. Sloane's expression changed. The calm disappeared. Her eyes moved from Grant to the judge, calculating. Paige could see it. The moment Sloane realized this wasn't just about money or reputation anymore. This was about a child with needs. A child who might require more than what Sloane signed up for. Paige watched Sloane's fingers tighten around her handbag. The grip looked painful. The judge paused, then said the words that would change everything. "There's an addendum." Judge reads, 99.99%, and pauses on purpose. The test proved the father, but it exposed the monster hiding in the bloodline. The judge didn't sugarcoat it. She read the addendum aloud, clinical and clear. A rare genetic mutation, inherited, paternally linked. The kind that didn't show symptoms right away but could mean a lifetime of medical appointments, treatments, monitoring. Grant's eyes went wide, not with concern for the baby, with panic for himself. Paige felt her stomach drop. Not because of the diagnosis, she'd face whatever came, but because she saw Grant's fear, and it wasn't about being a father. It was about being exposed. "Type," she ran, "if you think Sloane's about to abandon him." The second she hears, "genetic risk." Paige's lawyer stood immediately. "Your Honor, given this new information, we're requesting immediate protections. Full medical coverage, not just for delivery but for ongoing care. A protected trust to ensure the child's needs are met regardless of Mr. Grant's willingness to participate. Grant's lawyer looked lost. He shuffled papers, trying to find a response that didn't exist. The judge nodded. Granted. I'll issue temporary orders today, with a follow-up hearing to finalize long-term arrangements. Paige let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. She'd won. Not the way she wanted, not with Grant stepping up and being the man she thought he was, but she'd won protection, safety, a future for her child that didn't depend on Grant's goodwill. She looked across the aisle at Grant. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, he looked at her like he used to, raw, shaken, human. His gaze locked with hers, and for half a second, Paige saw the man she married. The one who used to hold her when she couldn't sleep. The one who promised her forever. But it was too late. She hated that the look still reached her body before her mind could stop it. She hated that some part of her still wanted him to be the man he used to be. Grant opened his mouth like he wanted to say something. Paige looked away first. Behind Grant, Sloane stood up. Not slowly, not casually. She stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. Everyone turned to look. She stepped into the aisle and walked toward Grant. Her heels clicked against the floor, each step deliberate. When she reached his row, she stopped right beside him. Grant looked up at her. Sloane, not now. She didn't let him finish. She leaned down, close enough that Paige couldn't hear what she said. But Paige could see Grant's face change, could see the way his body tensed. Whatever Sloane said, it wasn't comfort. It wasn't support. It was a threat. Sloane straightened and looked at Paige. Their eyes met across the courtroom. Sloane's expression was ice-cold, calculated. She wasn't upset about the genetic finding. She was recalculating her next move. Paige realized in that moment that Sloane had never been there for Grant. She'd been there for what Grant represented. Power, money, status. A child with medical needs didn't fit that plan. Sloane turned and walked toward the courtroom doors. She didn't look back. She didn't wait for Grant to follow. She just left. Grant sat frozen, staring at the spot where Sloane had been standing. His lawyer whispered something urgent, but Grant didn't respond. He just sat there, looking like everything he'd built his life around had walked out the door. The judge cleared her throat. "Mr. Grant, do you have anything to say?" Grant shook his head slowly. The judge's voice hardened. "Then I suggest you prepare yourself for the responsibilities ahead. This court will not tolerate any interference with the child's care or the mother's safety. Are we clear?" "Yes, Your Honor," Grant said, voice barely above a whisper. Sloane rises from her seat, walking toward Grant with a look that says she's about to expose her real reason for being there. Sloane's face held a smile that couldn't survive the number the judge just read. The moment the judge said, 99.99%, Sloane's smile cracked. Not all at once, just a flicker at the edges. Her lips stayed curved, but her eyes changed. The confidence drained out of them, replaced by something sharper, colder. Grant's mouth opened, but no sound came. He looked like someone had hit him in the chest. His hands went flat on the table, gripping the edge like he needed something solid to hold on to. Paige didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She just sat there, trembling. Her whole body shook with relief so heavy it felt like pain. The paper in the judge's hand shook slightly. Just a small tremor. Paige noticed because she was watching everything now. Every detail, every sound. Her own breathing was louder than the courtroom whispers. "Comment one word. Relief or rage? What would you feel first?" Grant's lawyer started talking, but Paige didn't hear the words. She was somewhere else. She was in their old bedroom, late at night, Grant's hand resting on her belly. She was 6 weeks pregnant then, barely showing. He'd kissed her stomach, gentle and slow, and whispered, "I'll handle everything. You don't have to worry about anything." That memory felt like a lie now, but it also felt like a longing, like grief for something that used to be real. Paige forced herself back to the present. The judge was still talking. "The paternity is confirmed beyond reasonable doubt. Mr. Grant, you are the biological father." Grant didn't respond. He just stared at the table. Paige's lawyer leaned over. This is it. We have everything we need. Paige nodded, but she didn't feel like celebrating. She felt exhausted, hollowed out. She'd fought so hard to get to this moment, and now that it was here, all she felt was empty. Across the aisle, Grant finally looked at her. Really looked at her. His eyes were red-rimmed, lost. He looked like the man she used to know, the one who held her when she cried, the one who made her laugh in the kitchen at midnight. But that man had disappeared months ago. This version sitting across from her was a stranger wearing Grant's face. The judge set the paper down. Before we proceed to next steps, there's something else. Paige's lawyer stiffened beside her. Your Honor. The judge picked up a second page. There's an addendum to the paternity report. The lab flagged a genetic marker during analysis. Paige's heart dropped. What kind of marker? The judge's expression softened. Just a little. A hereditary condition. Rare, but significant. The details are in the medical report, which I'll provide to both parties under seal. But the short version is this. The child will require ongoing medical care and monitoring. Paige felt the air leave her lungs. She'd been so focused on proving Grant was the father that she hadn't prepared for what might come next. Grant's face went pale. Not pale like before. This was different. This was fear. Sloane, still standing in the aisle, heard every word. Paige watched her expression change. The calculation. The shift. Sloane's fingers tightened around her handbag, knuckles going white. Paige knew what Sloane was thinking. A baby was one thing. A baby with medical needs was another. That wasn't part of Sloane's plan. The judge looked at both tables. I'm ordering immediate protections for the mother and child. Full medical coverage. Trust provisions. We'll reconvene for final terms. But as of today, Mrs. Grant and her child are under court protection. Paige exhaled. It wasn't everything, but it was enough. The judge paused, then added, there's an addendum. Even Paige's lawyer stiffened. Judge says, there's an addendum. And even Paige's lawyer stiffens. The DNA didn't just name the father. It named a risk nobody wanted to speak out loud. The judge held the second page like it weighed more than the first. She read it silently, her expression shifting from neutral to concerned. Then she looked up at both sides of the courtroom. The lab flagged a genetic marker, she said. It's hereditary, paternally linked. The condition is rare, but it requires monitoring and potentially lifelong medical intervention. Grant's face went from pale to ashen. His hands gripped the table edge. Paige watched his eyes widen, not with worry for the baby, but with something else. Panic, fear. Like the diagnosis wasn't about the child, it was about him. Do you think Sloane stays or runs? Type stays or runs. Paige's lawyer stood immediately. Your Honor, given this finding, we're requesting immediate protections. Full medical coverage for prenatal care, delivery, and all future treatments. A protected trust to ensure the child's needs are met regardless of the father's participation or financial changes. Grant's lawyer fumbled with his notes. He wasn't prepared for this. None of them were. The judge nodded slowly. The court recognizes the gravity of this situation. I'm granting emergency provisions today. Full coverage. Protected trust framework. This child will not suffer due to parental disputes. Paige felt her chest loosen just a little. Not relief. Not yet. But the beginning of something that might become safety. Across the aisle, Grant looked at her. Really looked at her. His eyes were raw, stripped of all the armor he'd worn into court. For the first time in months, Paige saw the man she used to know. The one who used to wake up early to make her coffee. The one who held her through bad nights. But she hated that the look still reached her body before her mind could stop it. She hated that some broken part of her still wanted him to be that man again. Grant's mouth opened like he wanted to speak, but nothing came out. Sloane's fingers tightened around her handbag. Paige watched the shift happen in real time. Sloane wasn't looking at Grant with desire anymore. She was calculating, measuring. A baby was one thing. A baby with medical needs, a baby that would cost time and money and attention. That wasn't part of her plan. Paige saw it clear as day. Sloane had wanted the image, the mansion, the company, the power. She hadn't signed up for responsibility. The judge continued. The genetic marker is detailed in the medical addendum, which I'm sealing under privacy protections. Both parties will receive copies through their legal counsel. But the summary is this. The child will need regular appointments, testing, and potentially long-term treatment depending on how the condition develops. Grant's lawyer finally found his voice. Your Honor, my client would like to request time to review. Denied? The judge said, sharper this time. This isn't negotiable. The child's welfare comes first. Mr. Grant, you are the father. The court has confirmed it. The genetic finding doesn't change that. It only changes your responsibilities. Grant nodded, but he looked like he was drowning. Paige felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. She'd won. The paternity was confirmed. The protections were in place. But looking at Grant now, broken, exposed, afraid, she felt no joy in it. Behind Grant, Sloane stood abruptly. The chair scraped loud against the floor. Everyone turned. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, handbag in hand, staring at the back of Grant's head. Then she stepped into the aisle. Her heels clicked against the floor. 1 step, 2, 3. She stopped right beside Grant's row. Grant looked up at her. Sloane. She didn't let him finish. She walked toward the front of the courtroom, her face set like stone. Sloane stands abruptly and steps toward Grant. Sloane didn't whisper her anger. She delivered it where everyone could hear it. She stopped 2 feet from Grant's seat. The courtroom held its breath. Even the judge paused, waiting to see what would happen. Grant stood slowly, like he was trying to calm a situation he didn't understand yet. Sloane, not here. She slapped him. The sound echoed off the wood benches. Sharp, clean, final. Someone in the back row gasped like they'd forgotten this was real life. Grant's hand went to his cheek, more from shock than pain. His eyes went wide. Sloane's voice was cold, controlled, deadly. I'm not staying for this. I'm not tied to a problem. If that slap shocked you, hit like, because it gets worse from here. Grant stared at her, mouth open, trying to find words that wouldn't come. Sloane leaned in close, her voice dropping just enough that only the first few rows could hear. You think I did all this for a sick kid and a legal mess? I wanted the company, the empire. You were supposed to be worth it. She straightened and looked at Paige. Their eyes met. Sloane's expression was ice. No guilt, no shame, just pure calculation. Then she turned and walked out. No hesitation, no looking back. She walked out of the courtroom like she was walking out of a bad business deal. The door closed behind her with a soft thud. The room stayed silent for 3 full seconds. Then the whispers started. Low at first, then building. People leaned toward each other, hands over mouths, eyes wide. Paige sat frozen. She'd expected Sloane to leave eventually. But not like this. Not in open court. Not with a slap that everyone would talk about for weeks. Grant sank back into his chair. His face was red where Sloane had hit him, but the real damage wasn't on his skin. It was in his eyes. He looked gutted, hollowed out. Paige remembered all the photos of them together. Sloane's hand on Grant's sleeve at events. The way she'd stand just close enough to claim ownership. Small touches that looked affectionate in pictures but now felt cheap. Calculated. Fake. The judge cleared her throat. Ms. Harper, you are being recorded for the court record. Your behavior will be noted. But Sloane was already gone. The judge turned to the bailiff. Make sure her name is recorded as a witness to these proceedings. If she interferes again, there will be consequences. The bailiff nodded and made notes. Grant's lawyer leaned over, whispering urgently. Grant shook his head, not responding. Paige's lawyer saw the opening and took it. She stood. Your Honor, given what just occurred, and given my client's vulnerable state, we're requesting immediate emergency relief. My client needs protection, not just legal but physical. We believe there's been interference in her medical care. We believe her safety has been compromised. The judge's expression hardened. What kind of interference? Altered medical appointments, missing records, unauthorized access to her patient files. We have evidence that someone with corporate-level authorization has been manipulating my client's prenatal care. The courtroom went quiet again. This wasn't just about paternity anymore. This was about something darker. The judge looked at Grant. Mr. Grant, do you have any knowledge of interference with Mrs. Grant's medical care? Grant looked up slowly. His voice was barely above a whisper. No, Your Honor. Do you know who might have had access? Grant hesitated. Then, Sloan had executive authorization on several accounts. For travel. For other things. The judge's jaw tightened. I'm issuing emergency orders. Full protection for Mrs. Grant. Home security. Communication boundaries. And I'm ordering an investigation into the medical interference claims. Paige's lawyer states on record, we believe medical interference occurred, and the room changes temperature. In 1 minute, Paige went from liar to protected. The judge didn't waste time. She pulled a form from her stack and started writing. The bailiff moved closer, ready to process whatever came next. Effective immediately, the judge said, I'm granting the following emergency orders. Full prenatal and delivery coverage at the medical facility of Mrs. Grant's choosing. Establishment of a protected trust framework for the child's future medical and living expenses. Home security provisions. And strict communication boundaries. Mr. Grant, you are not to contact Mrs. Grant except through legal counsel unless she initiates contact first. Paige gripped the chair arm, fighting another contraction. This one was stronger. She tried to breathe through it quietly, but her lawyer noticed. She put a hand on Paige's shoulder. Would you take the protection and disappear? Yes or no? Papers slid across the judge's bench as she signed each order. The sound of pen on paper was the only noise in the courtroom. Everyone else just watched. Grant's gaze dropped to Paige's lips for half a second. Just a flicker. Old hunger. Old habit. Then shame covered it and he looked away. Paige saw it. She felt it. And she hated that part of her still reacted. Her body remembered things her mind was trying to forget. The judge continued. Mr. Grant, you will also submit to a financial review to establish child support and medical trust contributions. Given the genetic finding, we're looking at long-term needs that go beyond standard support calculations. Grant nodded, but his eyes stayed down. Mrs. Grant, the judge said, voice softer now, do you feel safe returning to your current residence? Paige's lawyer answered for her. We've arranged for upgraded security, Your Honor, but we're concerned about ongoing interference. The judge made another note. I'm ordering a temporary restraining order against any third-party interference with Mrs. Grant's medical care. If anyone attempts to access her records, move her appointments, or otherwise interfere with her prenatal treatment, they will be held in contempt of this court and face criminal charges. Paige exhaled. Felt like the first real breath she'd taken in months. Grant's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client would like to state for the record that he had no knowledge of any medical interference and does not condone. Noted. The judge cut him off. But the investigation will proceed regardless of Mr. Grant's knowledge or intent. Someone interfered. We're going to find out who. Another contraction hit. Stronger this time. Paige pressed her hand to her belly and tried not to make a sound, but a small noise escaped. The judge looked at her with concern. Mrs. Grant, do you need medical attention right now? Paige shook her head. I'm okay. It's been a long day. Court is adjourned, the judge said. All orders are effective immediately. Bailiff, make sure Mrs. Grant has an escort to her vehicle. Mr. Grant, you'll remain here until Mrs. Grant has left the building. Grant didn't argue. He just sat there, looking smaller than Paige had ever seen him. Paige's lawyer helped her stand. They gathered their things and headed for the door. As they walked down the aisle, Paige felt Grant's eyes on her back. She didn't turn around. In the hallway, her lawyer stopped and pulled out her phone. I'm calling your doctor. You need to be checked. I'm fine, Paige said. But another contraction proved her wrong. Her lawyer's face was serious. Paige, listen to me. We just got you protected in court. But there's something else we need to address. What? We believe medical interference occurred, and we need to figure out how deep it goes before you deliver. The room changes temperature. Paige thought the court was the hardest part, until the ultrasound showed 2 heartbeats. The hospital room was cold. Too cold. Paige lay on the exam table, her shirt pulled up, her belly exposed. The gel was freezing when the technician spread it across her skin. "Let's take a look," the doctor said, voice calm and clinical. The ultrasound wand pressed against Paige's stomach. The monitor flickered to life, showing shadows and shapes Paige couldn't understand. The doctor moved the wand slowly, methodically. Then she stopped. "Oh," the doctor said softly. Paige's chest tightened. What's wrong?" The doctor turned the monitor so Paige could see better. She pointed to 2 distinct shapes on the screen. "Nothing's wrong, but you're having twins." Comment. Would twins make you feel blessed or terrified? Paige's breath caught. "What? Twins?" the doctor repeated. 2 babies. 2 heartbeats. "See here." She pointed to the screen. "And here." Paige heard the sound then. 2 distinct rhythms, slightly out of sync. Thump thump, thump thump. Her breath caught on the second one. I didn't know," Paige whispered. "How did I not know?" The doctor's expression was careful. "Sometimes it happens, especially if previous ultrasounds were rushed or if the positioning made it hard to see. But there's no doubt now. You're carrying twins." Paige started crying. Not gentle tears. Full, body-shaking sobs. She covered her face with her hands, trying to hold it together and failing completely. The technician handed her tissues. "It's okay. It's a lot to take in." But it wasn't just shock. It was everything. The court battle, the genetic finding, Grant's betrayal, Sloane's slap, and now this. 2 babies, 2 lives depending on her. 2 children who would need everything she just fought for and more. The door opened. Paige's aunt walked in, the one who'd been helping her through everything. She took one look at Paige's face and rushed over. "What happened? Is the baby okay?" "Babies," Paige said through tears. "There are 2. Her aunt's eyes went wide. Then she pulled Paige into a hug, careful of the wires and equipment. Okay. We'll handle this. You're not alone." The doctor gave them a moment, then gently continued the exam. She measured. She checked positions. She made notes. When she was done, she cleaned the gel off Paige's stomach and helped her sit up. "Given the genetic marker and the twin pregnancy, we're moving you to high-risk monitoring," the doctor said. "Weekly appointments, maybe more as you get closer to delivery. We'll need to watch both babies carefully." Paige nodded, still trying to process everything. "Is there anyone you want me to call?" the doctor asked. "The father." Paige's face went hard. "No." Her aunt squeezed her hand. They left the exam room and headed toward the exit. Paige was still shaky, still crying, still trying to wrap her mind around everything. In the hallway, she saw him. Grant. He was standing near the elevators, hands in his pockets, looking lost. When he saw Paige, he straightened. Their eyes met. Paige's aunt stepped between them. "You need to leave. I just wanted to make sure she's okay," Grant said quietly. Paige stepped around her aunt. "I'm having twins." Grant's face went pale. "Twins? 2 babies. Both with your genetic marker. Both needing everything the court just ordered." Grant reached for her hand. It was instinct. Habit. The way he used to reach for her when things got hard. The touch was electric. Charged. Unwanted but familiar. Paige felt it all the way up her arm. For half a second, neither of them moved. Then Paige pulled away first. "Don't." Grant's hand dropped. Paige's aunt guided her toward the car. As they walked away, Paige pulled out her phone to check her patient portal for the appointment schedule. That's when she saw it. Paige notices her appointment history has been altered in the clinic portal. Someone didn't need to touch Paige to harm her. Someone just needed access. Paige stared at her phone screen, her aunt driving beside her. The patient portal showed her appointment history, but something was wrong. The dates didn't match what she remembered. Appointments she'd attended showed as canceled or no-show. Notes that should have been there were missing. She pulled up her screenshots from weeks ago, the ones she'd taken when she first got suspicious. She compared them side by side. The timestamps didn't match. Someone had gone in and changed her records after the fact. If you think Sloane touched the medical side, type medical in the comments. Stop the car, Paige said. Her aunt glanced over. What's wrong? Someone's been in my medical files, changing things. Look. She held up her phone, showing the before and after screenshots. Her aunt pulled over into a parking lot. She looked at the phone, squinting at the small text. That's not possible. Who would have access? I don't know, but I'm finding out. Paige called the clinic. The receptionist answered on the third ring. This is Paige Grant. I need to speak to your IT admin. Now. Ma'am, I'm not sure I can. My medical records have been altered without my permission. That's illegal. Either you get me your IT admin, or I'm calling my lawyer and the state medical board. The receptionist put her on hold. Paige's thumb hovered over her phone as she opened her recording app. Her knuckles were pale from gripping the phone so tight. She wasn't taking chances anymore. Every conversation, every detail, everything on record. 2 minutes later, a man's voice came on the line. Mrs. Grant? This is David from IT. I understand you have concerns about your account. My appointment history has been changed. I have screenshots proving it. Who accessed my account? Silence on the other end. Then, ma'am, I'll need to pull the access logs. Can you give me a few minutes? I'll wait. The line went quiet. Paige heard keyboard clicking in the background. Her heart pounded in her chest. Her aunt squeezed her shoulder. Breathe. You're doing the right thing. Paige remembered Grant's late-night apology texts. The ones that always came after photos of him and Sloane at some event hit the tabloids. I'm sorry. I'm handling it. I'll make it right. Every time the words felt hollow. Every time Paige wanted to believe him anyway. Desire colliding with disgust. Need colliding with rage. The IT admin came back on the line. Mrs. Grant, I'm looking at the logs now. There were multiple access points over the past 6 weeks. Some from our internal staff, which is normal. But there are 3 entries that came from external authorization. What does that mean? It means someone outside our clinic staff used executive-level credentials to access your file. The changes were made under what's called a third-party request. It looks like they came through a corporate health account. Paige's blood went cold. A corporate account? Yes, ma'am. The account is registered to... Let me see. Grant Enterprises. Paige closed her eyes. There it was. Proof. Not just suspicion. Not just paranoia. Real, documented proof that someone with access to Grant's company had been messing with her medical care. I need a full report of every access, every change, every note. Send it to my lawyer. She gave him the email address. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry this happened. This shouldn't have been possible. But it was, Paige said. And now I need to know who. She hung up and immediately called her lawyer. We've got it, Paige said. We've got proof. Someone used Grant's corporate account to alter my appointments. Her lawyer was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm filing for a protective order extension. And we're subpoenaing Grant's entire corporate access log. Paige's lawyer says, we're filing for a protective order extension and subpoenas. Grant's defense was, I don't remember. And that excuse was about to collapse. Paige's lawyer called her at 7 in the morning. We found something. Grant had a private recovery stay after the gala. 3 days. Someone arranged everything. Paige sat up in bed, her belly heavy, her back aching. What kind of recovery? The kind that comes with restricted visitors and no paper trail. But we pulled an invoice. Someone paid cash up front. The signature on the authorization form is scribbled over. But the facility confirmed Grant was there. What do you think happened that night? Cheating? Setup? Or both? Paige's hands went cold. Grant had said he couldn't remember those days. That he'd been too drunk. That everything was a blur. But you don't book a private recovery stay if you're just drunk. You book it if someone wants to keep you quiet, keep you contained. Who arranged it? Paige asked. We're still working on that. But the facility is owned by a company that has ties to Grant's corporate network. We're following the money. Paige hung up and stared at the ceiling. Her mind went back to the gala. The way Sloane had stayed close to Grant all night. The way she'd guided him away from the crowd when he started looking unsteady. The way Paige had watched from across the room, stomach tight, knowing something was wrong but not knowing what. She remembered the bathroom hallway. Sloane's hand on Grant's elbow. Grant leaning against the wall, eyes unfocused. Sloane whispering something Paige couldn't hear. And then they were gone. Paige had searched for him. She'd asked security. She'd called his phone. No answer. For 2 full days, nothing. When he finally came home, he looked like a stranger. Detached. Hollow. He said he'd been sleeping it off. He said Sloane had arranged a car to a company apartment so he could recover privately. But now Paige knew there was more. She pulled up the facility's address on her phone. It was 2 hours outside the city. Quiet. Exclusive. The kind of place rich people went when they needed to disappear for a while. Her lawyer sent over the invoice. Paige opened the attachment and zoomed in on the signature block. It was scribbled over with thick black ink, like someone had tried to erase it. But underneath, Paige could make out the first letter. An S. Sloane. Paige's chest tightened. Sloane had arranged Grant's disappearance. She'd controlled where he went, who he saw, what he remembered. And for 3 days, Grant had been completely under her control. Paige remembered the night Grant came home. The way he'd gone straight to the shower. The way he wouldn't look at her. The way his hands shook when he tried to pour coffee the next morning. She'd asked him if he was okay. He'd said he was fine. Just tired. Just hungover. But he wasn't fine. He was scared. Paige called her lawyer back. I want to talk to someone who worked at that facility. A nurse. A receptionist. Anyone who saw him during those 3 days. We're working on it, her lawyer said. But people at places like that don't talk easily. They sign NDAs. They protect their clients. Then find someone who doesn't care about the NDA anymore, Paige said. Find someone who'll talk. 2 days later, her lawyer called again. We found someone. A driver who worked that weekend. He's willing to talk, but only off the record. And only if you guarantee protection. Paige didn't hesitate. Set it up. The driver agreed to meet in a quiet parking lot outside the city. Paige's lawyer would be there. Her security would be close. But Paige needed to hear this herself. She needed to know what happened to Grant during those missing days. She needed to know what Sloane did to him. And she needed to know if the man who came home was still the man she married, or if Sloane had turned him into something else. A former driver agrees to talk, off the record, if Paige guarantees protection. The driver didn't call Grant sir. He called him the client. Like it was business, not loyalty. The meeting happened at dusk. A parking lot behind a closed strip mall. Paige sat in the back seat of her security car, her lawyer beside her. The driver pulled up in an old sedan, windows tinted, engine running. He got out slowly, mid-50s, nervous hands. He looked around twice before walking over. Paige rolled down her window halfway. You worked for Grant that weekend? The driver nodded. I worked for the company. But that weekend, I worked for her. Sloane. Yeah. She called me directly. Said the client needed private transport. No logs. No records. Cash payment. Share this if you believe control can be worse than cheating. Paige's lawyer leaned forward. Where did you take him? The driver pulled a folded paper from his jacket. A route log. Handwritten. He passed it through the window. I kept my own notes. Just in case. Paige unfolded it. The log showed pickup times, drop-off locations, mileage. The first stop was the gala venue. The second stop was the private facility. But there were 2 more stops in between. Paige's finger hovered over the third line. What's this address? The driver shifted his weight. That's where she told me to take him first. Before the facility. It was a residence. Quiet neighborhood. She went inside with him. Told me to wait in the car. Paige's chest tightened. How long were they inside? Maybe 40 minutes. When they came out, he looked worse. Like he couldn't walk straight. She was holding him up. She put him in the back seat and told me to drive to the facility. Paige stared at the address. She recognized it. It was her neighborhood. Her street. Her house. Her throat closed. "You brought him to my house?" The driver looked down. "I didn't know whose house it was. I just drove where she told me." Paige's mind raced. Sloane had brought Grant to Paige's house while he was barely conscious. Why? What happened inside? What did Sloane do? Paige remembered waking up that night, sore and confused. She'd blamed it on pregnancy, on stress, on sleeping wrong. But now the pieces were coming together, and the picture they made was terrifying. Her lawyer spoke carefully. "Did you see anyone else at the house?" "No, just the two of them. And when they came out, she was smiling." He wasn't. Paige's body remembered Grant's touch. But her mind reminded her that someone may have used his body like a chess piece. Controlled. Manipulated. Moved where they wanted him. "What happened at the facility?" Paige asked. The driver handed over another piece of paper. She checked him in. Restricted visitors. No phone access. She told the staff he needed detox and rest. They took him to a private room. "I didn't see him again after that." Paige looked at the route log one more time. The stop at her house. The timing. The 40 minutes inside. It matched the conception window. It matched everything. Grant hadn't lied when he said he didn't remember. He probably didn't. But Sloane had made sure he was there anyway. "Why are you telling me this?" Paige asked. The driver met her eyes. "Because what she did wasn't right. I've driven a lot of people. I've seen a lot of things. But that night, that was different. That was planned. And I don't want any part of it." Paige's lawyer pulled out a document. "We'll need you to sign an affidavit. Everything you just said. Are you willing?" The driver hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, but I need protection. If she finds out I talked." "We'll handle it," Paige's lawyer said. The driver signed. Then he got back in his car and drove away. Paige sat in silence, staring at the route log. The stop near her house felt like a bomb that hadn't exploded yet. The route log includes one stop Paige recognizes, her own neighborhood. Paige watched the footage once, and her throat closed. She sat in her lawyer's office, laptop open on the desk between them. Her lawyer had pulled archived doorbell camera footage from the night in question. The file had been sitting in cloud storage for months, forgotten until now. "Are you sure you want to see this?" her lawyer asked. Paige nodded. She had to know. The lawyer pressed play. The video started at 11:47 p.m. The porch light flickered on. The camera angle was narrow, showing only the front steps and part of the walkway. The audio was tinny, picking up distant traffic and wind. Then two figures appeared at the edge of the frame. If you were Paige, would you confront Grant or stay silent until court? Confront or wait? One figure was tall, unsteady, leaning heavily on the other. The second figure was smaller, moving with purpose. The angle hid their faces, but Paige recognized the posture. The height, the build, Grant, and Sloane. Paige's finger trembled as she hit pause. She stared at the frozen image. Grant's head was down, his body sagging. Sloane's hand was on his back, guiding him forward. "Keep watching," her lawyer said quietly. Paige hit play. Sloane reached the door first. She knocked. Paige heard her own voice through the tinny speaker, muffled and sleepy. "Who is it?" Sloane's voice, clear and controlled. "It's me. Grant's not feeling well. Can you help?" The door opened. Paige saw herself on screen, pregnant, wearing a t-shirt and pajama pants. She looked half asleep, confused. "What happened?" Paige asked. "He had too much to drink," Sloane said. "He asked me to bring him home." Paige stepped aside. Sloane guided Grant through the door. The camera caught one last frame before they disappeared inside. Grant's head lifting just enough to show his eyes. Glassy, unfocused, gone. The timestamp showed 11:51 p.m. The door closed. Paige hit pause again. Her hands were shaking. She remembered that night now. She remembered opening the door. She remembered Sloane saying Grant needed help. She remembered helping him to the bedroom, thinking he was just drunk, thinking he'd be fine by morning. She didn't remember anything after that. How long were they inside? Paige asked. Her lawyer checked the log. Sloane left at 12:34 a.m. 43 minutes. Paige's memory flashed to waking up the next morning. Sore, confused. Grant was in bed beside her, still asleep, still dressed. She'd thought it was strange, but she'd blamed it on pregnancy symptoms, on stress, on her body doing things she couldn't explain. Now the doubt hit like ice. We can take this to the police, her lawyer said carefully. But it opens a criminal investigation. And if Grant didn't know what was happening, if he was incapacitated, then he's a victim too. Paige stared at the screen, at the frozen image of Grant's blank face. He didn't know. Are you sure? I'm sure. Her lawyer closed the laptop. Then we need to decide what to do with this. The footage proves Sloane brought him to your house. It proves the timing matches the conception window. But it also raises questions about consent. For both of you, Paige felt sick. Not from the pregnancy. From the realization that everything she thought she knew was a lie. Grant hadn't abandoned her. He'd been used. And so had she. What do we do? Paige asked. Her lawyer was quiet for a moment. We can use this in court to destroy Sloane's credibility. But if we go criminal, it could destroy Grant, too. The media would tear him apart. Your children would grow up knowing their father was part of something like this, even if he didn't choose it. Paige closed her eyes. She thought about the twins growing inside her. She thought about the life they'd have. She thought about the truth and what it would cost. Paige's lawyer says the footage may justify criminal investigation, but Paige hesitates, because it could destroy her children's father permanently. Grant didn't come to beg for love. He came to admit he'd lost control of his own life. The meeting was supervised. Paige's lawyer on one side, Grant's lawyer on the other. A conference room with glass walls and fluorescent lights that made everyone look tired. Grant sat across from Paige. His hands were empty. No gifts, no flowers, no envelope full of apologies. Just the weight of consequences. Do you respect Grant more for admitting it, or less for letting it happen? More or less? I let her run everything, Grant said. His voice was flat, honest. I thought she was helping. I thought she was protecting the company. But she was protecting herself. And I was too stupid to see it. Paige stayed quiet. She wanted him to keep talking. She needed to hear all of it. Grant continued. After the gala, I don't remember much. I remember drinking. I remember feeling off. And then, nothing. I woke up 3 days later in a facility I'd never heard of. Sloane told me I'd had a breakdown, that I needed rest, that she'd handled everything. And you believed her? Paige asked. Grant looked down. I didn't know what else to believe. I felt like I was losing my mind. She was the only one who seemed to know what was happening. Paige's lawyer leaned forward. Did you know she brought you to Mrs. Grant's house that night? Grant's head snapped up. What? We have footage. Sloane brought you to Paige's house. You were inside for 43 minutes. Grant's face went pale. I don't remember that. Convenient, Paige said, her voice sharp. Grant's eyes met hers. I'm not lying. I swear to you, I don't remember. The room went quiet. Paige studied his face. The exhaustion, the fear, the shame. She'd been with this man for years. She knew when he was lying. And right now he wasn't. I believe you, Paige said finally. Grant exhaled like he'd been holding his breath. But that doesn't fix anything, Paige continued. You let her control you. You let her ruin us. You let her touch my medical records, my life, my safety. And you did nothing. Grant's hands gripped the edge of the table. I never thought she'd go that far. I thought. You didn't think, Paige snapped. That's the problem. You let someone else do your thinking for you. Grant nodded slowly. You're right. Their closeness was heavy with what they used to be. Paige almost leaned in, almost reached for him. Then she stopped herself and said, Don't touch me. Grant pulled back. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't raise twins. Sorry doesn't pay for medical care. Sorry doesn't undo what she did. I know, Grant said. That's why I'm signing everything. The trust, the coverage, the terms, whatever you need. Paige's lawyer slid a stack of documents across the table. These are stricter than the court orders. Full medical coverage, education trust, housing support, and Mr. Grant agrees to step down as CEO to ensure the company remains stable enough to fund the trust long-term. Grant picked up a pen. His hand shook as he signed each page. One after another. No hesitation. No negotiation. When he was done, he set the pen down and looked at Paige. I did love you. I still do. Paige felt her chest tighten. But she didn't let it show. Love doesn't do this, Grant. Love doesn't let someone destroy the person you're supposed to protect. Grant's eyes filled. He didn't cry, but he looked like he wanted to. Paige stood to leave. As she gathered her things, her hand brushed his sleeve. The contact was tiny, accidental, but the shock of it hit both of them. Paige pulled away first. At the door, Grant spoke one more time. There's something else you need to know. Paige turned. Sloane recorded me. During the blackouts. She has videos. She's been using them to control me for months. Grant admits something else. Sloane recorded him during blackouts to control him. Grant's empire didn't panic because of divorce. People panicked because the air was real. The board meeting happened 2 days after Grant signed the trust documents. Paige wasn't there, but her lawyer was, sitting in as an observer to protect the twins' financial interests. The boardroom was cold, expensive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A long table that seated 20. Grant sat at the head, but he looked smaller than usual. Diminished. If you think Sloane is after power, not love-type power. Sloane sat 3 seats down. She'd positioned herself carefully. Close enough to be relevant. Far enough to look independent. She wore navy blue. Professional. Untouchable. The board chair opened the meeting. We're here to discuss leadership transition. Given recent developments, the board has concerns about stability. Grant stayed quiet. One of the board members spoke up. The paternity case has created a PR nightmare. Our stock has dropped 6% in 2 weeks. Investors are asking questions. We need to address this. Another board member chimed in. We also need to address the heir. A biological child with medical needs changes the succession plan, changes the trust structure, changes everything. Sloane saw her opening. She stood, smooth and confident. If I may, I'd like to propose a solution. The board chair nodded. Go ahead, Ms. Harper. Grant has been under immense personal stress, Sloane said, her voice measured. He's made decisions that have put the company at risk. I've been managing operations behind the scenes for months now. The company's most successful quarters have been under my oversight. I think it's time we formalize that. Grant's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. You're proposing what exactly? The board chair asked. An interim CEO position. Grant steps down temporarily to handle his personal matters. I step in to stabilize operations. The board maintains oversight. And when the dust settles, we reevaluate. The room filled with whispers. Phones came out. Calculators. Spreadsheets. Grant finally spoke. She planned this. The room went quiet. What did you say? The board chair asked. Grant stood. She planned all of it. The paternity case. The media circus. The PR nightmare. She orchestrated it to create instability so she could take over. Sloane's expression didn't change. That's absurd. I've been cleaning up your messes for months. Grant. Don't blame me for your failures. Grant's lawyer slid a tablet across the table to the board chair. We have evidence that Ms. Harper interfered with Mrs. Grant's medical care, altered appointments, accessed confidential records. We also have testimony that she controlled Mr. Grant's movements during a critical period, potentially without his full consent. The boardroom screen lit up. A spreadsheet showing corporate account access logs. Sloane's name appeared multiple times next to Paige's medical records. Sloane's face finally changed. Just a flicker. But it was enough. The board chair looked at her. Is this true? I was protecting the company, Sloane said, voice sharp now. Grant was falling apart. Someone had to manage the situation. By violating privacy laws? The board chair asked. Sloane stepped closer to Grant. Too close. Her voice dropped, but the room's acoustics carried it anyway. I covered up for you. The facility. The recordings. The things you don't remember. I protected you. It wasn't affection. It was coercion. Control dressed as desire. The room saw it. Grant's face hardened. I didn't ask you to protect me. I didn't ask you to ruin my family. Sloane's eyes went cold. Your family was already ruined. I just made sure you didn't take the company down with it. The board chair stood. This meeting is over. Ms. Harper, you're suspended pending investigation. Mr. Grant, we'll discuss transition terms privately. Sloane grabbed her bag and walked out. But before she left, she turned back one last time. You'll regret this. Grant signed preliminary resignation terms to stop the bleeding. But it hands Sloane a door she's been waiting to open. Paige collapsed at the stand. And now the audience finally knows why she looked more afraid than sick. The courtroom came full circle. Everything that seemed like weakness at the start. Paige's collapse, the contraction pain, the fear in her eyes now made sense. It wasn't fragility. It was survival instinct. Her body knew something was wrong before her mind could prove it. The judge reviewed everything one more time. The altered appointments, the missing days, the corporate interference, the doorbell footage, the driver's testimony. All of it laid out like pieces of a puzzle that finally showed the full picture. Final for this section. Should Paige leave the U.S. quietly or stay and expose everyone? Leave or expose? Mrs. Grant, the judge said, voice softer than before. I want to be clear about something. What happened to you was not your fault. What happened to Mr. Grant was not entirely his fault either. But the people who orchestrated this, they will face consequences. Paige nodded, but she didn't feel vindicated. She just felt tired. The judge continued. I'm strengthening the protection orders. Immediate security detail. No contact from any third parties associated with Mr. Grant's company. And I'm referring this case to law enforcement for potential criminal investigation into medical privacy violations and corporate misconduct. Paige's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client would like to request permission to relocate for her safety and the safety of the children. The judge didn't hesitate. Granted. Mrs. Grant, you're free to relocate wherever you feel safe. The trust and support orders will follow you regardless of location. Paige exhaled. For the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe. Across the aisle, Grant sat with his head down. He didn't look at her, didn't try to speak. He just sat there, carrying the weight of everything he'd let happen. Paige steadied her breathing. The courtroom sounds faded. She focused on the baby's movement inside her. One kicking, then the other like a metronome keeping time, reminding her why she fought. Grant finally looked up. He watched Paige like he was seeing her for the first time. Really seeing her. Not as his wife. Not as a problem to manage. But as the woman who'd survived everything he and Sloane had put her through. Guilt mixed with something else on his face. A craving he didn't deserve. A longing for what used to be. Paige refused to give him even a flinch. She looked away first. The judge dismissed the session. We'll reconvene for final orders in 2 weeks. Mrs. Grant, take care of yourself and those babies. Paige stood slowly. Her lawyer helped her gather her things. As they walked down the aisle toward the exit, people stared. But this time, the stares felt different. Not judgmental. More like witnessing. Like they finally understood. Outside the courthouse, Paige's new security team surrounded her. 2 guards. 1 driver. All arranged by her lawyer to make sure no one could get close without permission. Paige climbed into the car, her body aching, her mind racing. She pulled out her phone to call her aunt. That's when she saw it. The black SUV. Same make, same model, same tinted windows. Parked 3 cars down from the courthouse entrance. Engine running. Paige's driver noticed her staring. Ma'am? You okay? That SUV, Paige said, voice tight. How long has it been there? The driver looked in the rearview mirror. His face changed. I'll handle it. He radioed the other security guard. Within seconds, one of them approached the SUV on foot. The SUV pulled out before the guard could reach it. But Paige saw enough. She saw the plate frame. The same custom frame she'd seen outside the clinic weeks ago. Same vehicle. Same threat. The danger didn't end with the DNA results. It didn't end with the court orders. It didn't end with Grant's resignation. Someone was still watching. Someone was still following. And Paige realized the fight wasn't over yet. Outside court, Paige spots a black SUV that's been following her since the clinic. Same plate frame. Meaning the danger didn't end with the DNA. Paige left court protected on paper. Yet somebody followed her like protection didn't matter. The SUV stayed 3 cars back. Paige watched it in the side mirror as her driver navigated through downtown traffic. Every turn they made, it made. Every light they stopped at, it stopped too. How long has it been following us? Paige asked. Her driver's eyes stayed on the road. Since we left the courthouse. Maybe before. I'm calling it in. If you think this follow is a warning, comment, watching. He radioed Paige's lead security contact. We've got a tail. Black SUV. Tinted windows. Been on us for 6 blocks. The voice on the other end was calm. Get her somewhere public. Don't go home. I'm pulling the plate now. The driver changed routes, heading toward a busy shopping center. The SUV followed. When they pulled into the parking lot, the SUV stayed at the entrance, idling, watching. Paige's hands shook. She tried to steady them, but the fear was too big. She'd just won in court. She'd just gotten protection. And now someone was making it clear that court orders didn't mean anything if they wanted to reach her. Inside the car, her mind flashed to a memory she tried to forget. Years ago, early in the marriage. Grant gripping her thigh during a quiet ride home from dinner. His voice low, possessive. No one touches what's mine. She thought it was romantic then. Protective. Now the memory made her feel sick. Because someone had touched what was his. Multiple someones. And he hadn't protected her at all. The radio crackled. I've got the plate. Registered to a shell company. Corporate address matches Grant's network. It's tied to a security contractor. Paige's stomach dropped. A security contractor? Yeah. The kind companies hire when they need problems handled quietly. The driver's voice was tight. What do we do? Stay public. I'm sending backup. And I'm contacting the police. This is harassment at minimum. Possible stalking. Paige watched the SUV through the window. It hadn't moved. Just sitting there. Waiting. Like whoever was inside wanted her to know they were there. Wanted her to feel watched. Her phone buzzed. A text from her lawyer. Police have been notified. Stay where you are. Do not engage. Paige typed back. Who's in the SUV? 3 dots appeared. Then we're working on it. Stay safe. Paige's security guard approached the driver's window. We've got 2 units on the way. Local PD is sending a car too. Just sit tight. But sitting tight felt impossible. Paige's heart pounded in her chest. The twins moved inside her, restless, like they could feel her fear. 5 minutes later, a police car pulled into the parking lot. The SUV's engine revved. Then it pulled out, slow and deliberate, driving past the police car like it had nothing to hide. The police followed. Paige's driver exhaled. We're clear. For now. But Paige didn't feel clear. She felt exposed. Hunted. Like every protection order in the world couldn't stop someone who was determined enough. Her security contact called. Paige, I've got an update. The shell company is owned by a corporate fixer. Name's Marcus Webb. He's been on Grant's payroll for 3 years. Handles reputation control. Problem management. The kind of work that doesn't show up on official records. Paige's throat went dry. Why would he be following me? That's what we're trying to figure out. But my guess? Someone hired him to keep tabs on you. Make sure you don't talk. Make sure you don't push for a criminal investigation. Paige felt anger replace fear. I already pushed. The judge referred it to law enforcement. Exactly. Which means whoever hired Webb is getting nervous. Paige looked out the window. The SUV was gone, but the feeling of being watched stayed with her. I want to know who hired him, Paige said. I want proof. We're working on it. But Paige, be careful. These people don't play fair. Security pulls the SUV's plate, registered to a shell company tied to Grant's corporate network. The judge ordered protection. Paige ordered survival. Within 48 hours, Paige's apartment looked like a fortress. Cameras on every corner. Motion sensors on the doors. A new security system that sent alerts to her phone, her lawyer, and the private security company her lawyer had hired. Her driver rotation changed daily. New faces, different cars, different routes. Nothing predictable. Nothing someone could track. Would you take private security in this situation? Or would you feel trapped? Trapped or safe? The hospital added Paige to their high-risk patient list. When she went for appointments, security walked her from the car to the office. No one was allowed near her without ID verification. Her lawyer requested an emergency review of the clinic's access logs. Not just who had access Paige's files, but when, from where, and what they changed. The clinic's legal team cooperated immediately, probably scared of lawsuits. Paige sat in her lawyer's office, watching the IT admin pull up the full access history on a large monitor. Each entry showed a timestamp, a username, and an action. Here, the IT admin said, pointing to a cluster of entries from 6 weeks ago. These all came from the same external authorization. Someone logged in using executive-level credentials and made multiple changes. What kind of changes? Paige asked. The admin scrolled through. Appointment reschedules. Note deletions. Lab result delays. Even a flag on your file that marked you as high anxiety, which usually triggers extra scrutiny from medical staff. Paige's hands curled into fists. That's why the doctors had started treating her differently. Someone had poisoned the well before she even walked in. Can you trace who used the credentials? Her lawyer asked. The admin hesitated. The account is registered to Grant Enterprises, but the specific user, it's not logged. Whoever did this knew how to cover their tracks. Paige caught herself craving comfort and hated it. She replayed a memory she shouldn't keep returning to. Grant calming her breathing with slow kisses on her shoulder. Late at night, early in the pregnancy, when she'd been too anxious to sleep. He'd held her until she relaxed. That man felt like fiction now. A story she'd told herself to survive the loneliness. Her lawyer closed the laptop. We're filing for a protective order extension. And we're subpoenaing Grant's entire corporate access log. Every user, every action, every timestamp. If Sloan or anyone else touched your files, we'll find it. Paige nodded. What about the fixer? The one following me? We're building a case. But we need more than a license plate. We need proof of intent. Proof of who hired him and why. Paige left the office feeling like she was playing defense in a game where the rules kept changing. Every time she thought she was safe, another threat appeared. At home, she locked the door and checked every camera feed on her phone. All clear. She made tea and sat by the window, watching the street below. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You don't have to do this alone. Paige's chest tightened. She didn't recognize the number. She didn't respond. Another message appeared. I know what Sloan did. I can help. Paige stared at the screen. Could be a trap. Could be the fixer trying to bait her. Or it could be someone who actually knew something. She forwarded the messages to her lawyer. Within minutes, her lawyer called back. Don't respond. We're tracing the number. But Paige, it looks like it came from inside Grant's company. Someone on the inside wants to talk. Paige's pulse quickened. Someone inside the company had information. Someone was willing to risk their job or worse, to tell the truth. Her lawyer continued. The clinic's IT admin just sent over a final detail. The executive authorization that changed your appointments? It was approved 2 days after the gala. Right when Grant was in that private facility. The clinic's IT admin quietly admits someone used executive authorization to alter Paige's appointments. Sloane didn't call to apologize. She called to negotiate. The call came through Paige's lawyer at 9 in the morning. Sloane's voice was calm, controlled, like she was calling about a business deal, not a life she tried to destroy. "I have information," Sloane said. "Information Paige needs. But I'm not giving it for free." Paige's lawyer put the call on speaker. Paige sat across the desk, listening. "What kind of information?" the lawyer asked. "The kind that proves I wasn't the only one involved. The kind that proves Grant knew more than he's saying. The kind that could put other people in jail. Would you pay Sloane for the truth, or let her burn?" "Pay or burn." Paige leaned forward. "You want immunity." Sloane's laugh was soft. "I want immunity and money. Enough to disappear. Enough to start over somewhere else." Paige's lawyer kept her voice neutral. "What makes you think we'd negotiate with you? Because without me, you'll never know the whole truth. You'll never know who really orchestrated the medical interference. You'll never know why Grant's father's medical records were sealed. And you'll never know what the fixer was hired to do." Paige's stomach tightened. "You hired him?" Sloane paused. Then, "I recommended him. But I'm not the one who signed the check." "Who did?" "That's part of what I'm offering. But not until we have a deal." Paige's lawyer muted the call. "This could be a trap. She's desperate. She'll say anything to save herself." Paige stared at the phone. "But what if she's telling the truth? What if there's more we don't know?" Her lawyer unmuted. "We'll consider your offer. But we need proof first. Something that shows you actually have valuable information." Sloane was quiet for a moment. Then her voice changed. Softer. Almost intimate. "Grant used to talk in his sleep. Did you know that, Paige?" Paige's blood went cold. Sloane continued. "He'd say your name. He'd apologize for things he couldn't remember. He was terrified of you finding out about his father. About the genetic issues. About what it would mean for any children." Paige realized in that moment that intimacy had been weaponized. Sloane hadn't been close to Grant because she loved him. She'd been close because proximity gave her leverage. "Grant's father died at 47, Sloane said. "Fast decline. The family paid a fortune to keep it quiet. And when Grant found out he carried the same mutation, he panicked. That's when I stepped in. Offered to help him manage it. Manage you. Manage the pregnancy if it ever became a problem." Paige's hands shook. "You planned this from the beginning." "I planned to protect the company. The pregnancy wasn't supposed to make it to court. It was supposed to resolve itself." The words hung in the air like poison. Paige's lawyer leaned forward. "You're admitting to attempted harm?" Sloane's voice turned sharp. "I'm admitting to nothing without a deal. But I'm saying that if you want to know who gave the final orders, who authorized the medical interference, and who hired the fixer to follow Paige, you'll need me." Paige felt sick. The fixer. What was he supposed to do? Sloane was silent for 3 long seconds. Then, "Let's just say his job description included making problems disappear. Permanently." Paige's lawyer ended the call immediately and looked at Paige. "We're going to the police. Now." But Paige's mind was stuck on one sentence. One truth that made everything else fall into place. Your pregnancy wasn't supposed to make it to court. Sloane had never planned for Paige to survive long enough to fight back. Sloane says one sentence that freezes Paige. Your pregnancy wasn't supposed to make it to court. The truth arrived in a folder, not a confession. Sloane's package came by courier. Unmarked envelope. Thick, heavy. Paige's lawyer opened it carefully, half expecting a threat. Instead, she found evidence. Route logs from the night of the gala. Screenshots of text messages between Sloane and the fixer. A voice recording 3 minutes long. Of Grant slurring his words while someone prompted him with questions. Hit like if you believe proof matters more than reputation. Paige's lawyer played the recording on her office speakers. The audio was muffled, but clear enough. Grant's voice, barely coherent. I don't want to hurt her." A woman's voice, "Sloane. You're not hurting anyone. You're protecting the company. Protecting your legacy." Grant. "But the baby." Sloane. The baby is a complication. We'll handle it. You just need to trust me. Paige felt her chest tighten. She listened to Grant's broken voice and heard the man she used to know. Confused. Scared. Being led by someone who knew exactly what she was doing. Her body remembered his strength. The way he used to hold her. The way his hands felt steady and sure. Her heart remembered his softness. The way he'd whisper promises in the dark. But her mind remembered his cruelty. The way he'd called her a liar in court. The way he'd let Sloane destroy her. All three memories fought inside her at once. Paige's lawyer pulled up the screenshots. Text messages between Sloane and a number labeled MW. The fixer. Sloane. She's still pushing for the test. We need to slow her down. MW, how aggressive. Sloane, whatever it takes. Just don't leave marks. Paige's hands went cold. They wanted to hurt me. Her lawyer nodded. This is enough for criminal charges. Conspiracy. Harassment. Possibly attempted assault. The route logs showed 2 stops the night of the gala. The first was Paige's house. The second was a private medical office. Paige pointed to the second address. What's that? Her lawyer pulled up the property records. It's a medical testing facility, but not a regular one. It's owned by a company that specializes in genetic screening and selective procedures. Paige's stomach turned. What kind of procedures? Her lawyer hesitated. The kind people use when they want to terminate a pregnancy for genetic reasons. Quietly, without public records. The pieces fell into place. Sloane had brought Grant to Paige's house to establish paternity. Then she'd taken him to a facility where she could have arranged for the pregnancy to end, if Paige had been willing, or if circumstances had been different. But Paige hadn't gone to that facility. She'd never even heard of it, which meant Sloane's plan had a backup, a way to make the problem disappear even if Paige refused to cooperate. That's where the fixer came in. Paige's lawyer pulled up more files from the package. Financial records showing payments from Grant's corporate account to the fixer. Dates lined up with Paige's altered appointments. With the SUV sightings. With the anonymous threats. We need to take all of this to the district attorney, her lawyer said. This is beyond civil court now. This is criminal. Paige nodded. But her mind was stuck on one question. Did Grant know? About the fixer? About what Sloane planned to do to me? Her lawyer looked at the evidence spread across the desk. I don't know. The voice recording suggests he was being manipulated. But the financial records show payments authorized from his corporate account. Either he knew and didn't stop it, or he gave Sloane so much control that she could do anything in his name. Paige wasn't sure which option was worse. Her lawyer's phone buzzed. She checked it, then looked up at Paige. The DA wants to meet. Today. They're ready to open a criminal investigation. The files show a stop near Paige's home plus a second stop. A private medical office tied to Grant's investments. Paige didn't chase revenge. She chased records. The private medical office sat in a business park 30 minutes outside the city. Clean. Discreet. No signs out front. Just a suite number and a locked door. Paige's lawyer sent an investigator to pull property records and corporate filings. The office was owned by MedTech Ventures LLC. And MedTech Ventures was a subsidiary of Grant's investment portfolio. Do you think Grant knew about the mutation before the test? Yes or no? Paige sat in her lawyer's office, staring at the documents spread across the desk. He owned the place where Sloane took him that night? Her lawyer nodded. Not directly, but his company held a significant stake. The facility specializes in genetic screening and selective procedures. High-end, private, the kind of place people go when they don't want records in the public system. Paige's stomach turned. Why would Grant invest in a place like that? That's what we're trying to figure out. But look at the timeline. He bought into the company 3 years ago, right around the time his father got sick. Paige remembered Grant's father. Distant, cold. He died when Paige and Grant were newlyweds. Grant had never talked about it. He'd gone to the funeral alone, came back quiet, and never mentioned his father again. What did his father die from? Paige asked. Her lawyer pulled up another file. That's where it gets interesting. The official cause of death was heart failure. But we pulled medical records through a subpoena. His father had the same genetic mutation the judge mentioned in court. And it progressed fast. He went from healthy to dead in 18 months. Paige's chest tightened. Grant knew. He knew he might have it too. It looks that way. And if he knew, then the investment in medtech makes sense. He was preparing. Looking for options. Looking for ways to manage it if it ever became a problem. Paige remembered a moment from early in their marriage. Late at night. Grant's hand on her stomach. His voice soft. "My body is built to win," he'd said, breath against her neck. She'd thought he was joking, being cocky. But now she heard it differently. It wasn't confidence. It was denial. He'd been lying to himself. And to her. Did he know before the paternity test? Paige asked. Her lawyer hesitated. "We can't prove it, but the circumstantial evidence is strong. He invested in a company that screens for the exact mutation he carries. He never told you about his father's real cause of death." And Sloane knew, which means someone told her. Paige felt anger rise in her chest. He let me go through this whole pregnancy not knowing. He let me fight for paternity while he already knew the baby might have medical issues. "Worse than that," her lawyer said. "If he knew, and if Sloane knew, then the plan to interfere with your pregnancy makes even more sense. They weren't just trying to avoid a paternity claim. They were trying to avoid a child with expensive, lifelong medical needs." Paige's hands curled into fists. "He was willing to let me lose this pregnancy to protect his company." Her lawyer didn't answer. She didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself. Paige pulled up her phone and scrolled through old messages. She found one from Grant, sent 2 months before the separation. "We should talk about the future, about what we want, about what we're ready for." She thought he meant kids in general. But now she realized he'd been trying to feel out whether she'd be willing to screen for genetic issues. Whether she'd be willing to make decisions based on test results. She'd said she wanted a family. She'd said she was ready. And that's when he'd started pulling away. Her lawyer's phone buzzed. She read the message, then looked at Paige. Grant's father's medical records just came through. There's a note from his final hospital stay. It mentions that the family requested the records be sealed. And the payment for that request came from Grant's personal account. Paige learns Grant's father died after a fast decline, and the family paid to keep details quiet. Grant didn't fall apart in court. He fell apart alone. The meeting happened in a conference room with no windows. Grant sat on one side, Paige on the other, lawyers between them like referees. Grant's face looked hollow, thinner, like he hadn't been eating, or sleeping, or doing anything but sitting in the dark thinking about what he'd lost. "I need to say something," Grant started. His voice was rough, tired. "I let Sloane run my life. I let her make decisions I should have made. I let her convince me that protecting the company was more important than protecting you." Comment. Does accountability matter if it comes late? Late or never? Paige stayed quiet. She wanted to hear all of it. Grant continued. "When my father died, I found out about the mutation. I got tested. I found out I had it too. And I panicked. I didn't want to be like him. I didn't want to fall apart at 45 and leave nothing behind. So you invested in a genetic screening company," Paige said. Grant nodded. "I thought if I ever had kids, I could make sure they didn't suffer. Make sure they didn't carry it. Sloane knew. She helped me set it up. She said it was smart planning. But you never told me." "I was scared," Grant said. "I thought if you knew, you'd leave. Or you'd look at me differently. Like I was broken." Paige felt her anger crack just a little. Not forgiveness. Just recognition. She understood fear. She'd lived in it for months. "When you got pregnant," Grant continued, "I didn't know what to do. Sloane said we should wait. See how things went. She said if the baby had the mutation, we'd deal with it quietly. I didn't know she meant." He stopped, swallowed. "I didn't know she'd try to hurt you. But you signed the checks," Paige said. "The fixer. The medical interference. That money came from your accounts. Grant's face crumpled. She had access. I gave her executive authorization years ago because I trusted her. I didn't check what she was doing. I just let her handle things. Paige's lawyer slid a stack of documents across the table. These are the revised terms. Full medical trust for both children. Lifetime coverage. Education funds. Housing support. And Mr. Grant agrees to step down as CEO to ensure company stability. Grant picked up a pen. His hand shook as he signed each page. One after another. No questions. No negotiations. Just his name over and over, giving away the empire he'd built. When he was done, he set the pen down and looked at Paige. I know this doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know. I never wanted you to get hurt. But I did, Paige said. And so did our babies. Grant nodded. He stood to leave, gathering his things. Paige stood too. As she reached for her bag, her hand brushed his sleeve. Just for a second. The contact was electric. Unexpected. Both of them froze. Paige felt the shock run up her arm. The muscle memory of 1,000 touches before this one. Her body remembered loving him. Her heart remembered trusting him. But her mind remembered everything he'd let happen. She pulled away first. Grant's eyes filled, but he didn't cry. He just looked at her one last time, then walked out. Paige's lawyer waited until the door closed. There's something else. Grant said there's still someone inside his corporate system. Someone helping Sloan. Someone who hasn't been exposed yet. Paige's stomach dropped. Who? He doesn't know, but he thinks they're still active. Still watching. Still protecting Sloan's interests. Grant says, someone is still inside my system, implying Sloan wasn't working alone. Sloan was loud. The real danger stayed quiet. Paige's security team worked through the night pulling corporate access logs, cross-referencing names, following digital trails. By morning, they had a name. Marcus Webb, corporate security contractor. On Grant's payroll for 4 years. Specialized in reputation management and problem control. If you think the fixer is the real villain, type fixer. He's the one who's been following you, Paige's lead security contact said. The black SUV, the altered routes, the clinic interference. It all ties back to him. Paige sat in her living room, surrounded by cameras and monitors and people whose job was to keep her alive. Who hired him? Grant or Sloan? Both. But Sloan gave him the specific orders. Grant just signed the checks without asking questions. Paige felt sick. Marcus Webb wasn't just a driver or a shadow. He was a professional. Someone who knew how to make problems disappear. And Paige had been the problem. Her security contact pulled up a file. Webb's got a history. Worked for 3 other executives before Grant. 2 of them had similar situations. Employees who threatened lawsuits, mistresses who wanted money, business partners who knew too much. In each case, the problem went away. Quietly. What does that mean? Paige asked, though she already knew. It means Webb is good at making people afraid enough to stop fighting. Sometimes through intimidation. Sometimes through accidents that aren't really accidents. Paige's hands shook. And Sloan hired him to handle me? We think so. The timeline matches. He started following you right after you filed for the paternity test. And his activity increased every time you pushed for more evidence. That night, Paige couldn't sleep. Every sound in the apartment felt like a threat. Every shadow looked like someone watching. She lay in bed, hands on her belly, feeling the twins move. She had a nightmare. Grant's voice, pleading. I don't want this. I didn't ask for this. Hands she couldn't see holding him down. Sloan's voice, calm and cold. You don't have to ask. I'm handling it. Then the scene shifted. Paige was in a hospital bed. Alone. No security. No lawyer. Just her and the babies. And someone standing in the doorway. Watching. Waiting. She woke up sweating. Her heart pounded. She grabbed her phone and checked the security cameras. All clear. But the fear didn't leave. She caught herself craving safety. Craving the version of Grant who used to calm her breathing. Who used to whisper that everything would be okay. But that version didn't exist anymore. Maybe it never had. She refused to call him. Refused to ask for comfort from the man who'd let her become a target. The next morning, Paige's driver called. His voice was tight, scared. Someone contacted me last night, offered me money, a lot of money, to take one detour, just one, to a location he'd text me when the time came. Paige's blood went cold. Who? He didn't give a name, but the number traces back to Webb. Paige's lawyer conference called the police immediately. They set up surveillance on the driver, put a tracker on Paige's car, prepared for Webb to make his move. We're going to catch him, the detective said. But you need to be ready. He's going to try something soon. And when he does, we'll be there. Paige nodded. But ready felt like a word that didn't mean anything anymore. She'd been ready for court, ready for betrayal, ready for Sloane's lies. But she hadn't been ready for someone to want her dead. The fixer attempts to contact Paige's driver with an offer. Money for one detour. The twins chose the worst night to scare her. Paige woke at 2 in the morning with a contraction so strong it knocked the air out of her lungs. She grabbed her phone, called her security contact, then called her aunt. I think it's time, Paige said, voice shaking. By the time she reached the hospital, security was already in place. 2 guards in the lobby, 1 outside her room. The hospital had been briefed. No one got near Paige without ID verification and approval from her security team. If you're still here, comment your city/state. Let's see where everyone's watching from. The doctor checked her. You're in early labor. Could be hours. Could be tonight. We're going to monitor you closely. Paige lay in the hospital bed, hands on her belly, feeling the twins shift and kick. She tried to focus on them, on their heartbeats, on the fact that they were almost here. But then her security contact burst into the room. Webb's SUV just pulled into the hospital parking lot. Paige's chest tightened. What? He's here. Police are on their way, but we need to move you. Now. The hospital staff acted fast. They moved Paige to a different floor, a different wing, a room with restricted access. Security locked down the corridor. No one in or out without clearance. Paige's contractions got stronger, closer together. The doctor said it wouldn't be long now. But Paige couldn't focus. She kept thinking about Webb, about what he'd been hired to do, about how close he'd gotten. In the delivery-adjacent room, waiting for her body to be ready, Paige's mind flashed to a memory she'd tried to bury. Grant's mouth on her inner wrist, his touch soft, reverent. It was their best night together. The night she'd told him she was pregnant. He'd held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. I'll keep you safe, he'd whispered. Both of you. She hated herself for mourning that version of him, for wanting him to be the man he'd promised to be. Her phone buzzed. A text from the detective. Webb has been detained in the parking lot. We found a weapon in his vehicle. He's not getting near you. Paige exhaled. Relief and fear and exhaustion all hit at once. She started crying. Not from pain. From everything. Her aunt held her hand. You're safe now. Focus on the babies. But an hour later, a nurse came in looking confused. There's been a mix-up with your room assignment. Someone called earlier and requested a change. We almost moved you before we realized it wasn't authorized. Paige's security contact stepped forward. Who called? The nurse checked her notes. They said they were your assistant. But when we called back to confirm, the number was disconnected. Paige's lawyer was on the phone immediately. That was Webb. He tried to move her to an unsecured room. He was setting up access. The hospital doubled security. Police stayed on site. And Paige finally understood how close she'd come. Not just to danger, to losing everything. The twins were born 6 hours later. Healthy, small but strong. 2 girls. Paige held them and cried. Not from fear this time. From relief. From love. From the knowledge that she'd survived everything thrown at her. Grant wasn't there. The hospital had denied his request to visit. Paige didn't fight it. She didn't need him there. She had her aunt, her lawyer, her security, and most importantly, she had her daughters. 2 tiny lives that depended on her being strong enough to keep going. A nurse reports someone called pretending to be Paige's assistant to change her room assignment. Sloane didn't lose because she was outsmarted. She lost because she panicked. The police brought Sloane in for questioning 3 days after the twins were born. She came with her lawyer, dressed in black, hair perfect, face calm. But Paige's lawyer was there too, watching from an adjacent room through a one-way mirror. Paige sat beside her. Twins sleeping in a double stroller her aunt was watching in the hallway. "This is a voluntary interview," the detective said. "But we have evidence linking you to multiple crimes. Medical privacy violations, corporate intimidation, conspiracy to commit assault. Would you forgive betrayal if it came with the full truth? Forgive or no?" Sloane's lawyer started to speak, but Sloane cut her off. "I didn't do anything illegal. I managed a corporate crisis. That's my job." "By altering medical records?" the detective asked. "By using access I was legally granted." "By hiring Marcus Webb to intimidate Mrs. Grant?" Sloane hesitated, just for a second. "But it was enough." "I didn't hire Webb. Grant did." The detective slid a folder across the table. "That's not what the financial records show. The payments to Webb came from an account you controlled. An account Grant gave you access to, yes. But the specific transactions? Those were authorized by you." Sloane's calm started to crack. "I was protecting the company. Grant was falling apart. Someone had to make hard decisions. Hard decisions like altering prenatal appointments? Like following a pregnant woman? Like ordering Webb to arrange a detour that could have put her in danger." Sloane's lawyer put a hand on her arm. "Don't answer that." But Sloane was already talking. "You don't understand. Paige wasn't supposed to fight. She was supposed to take the settlement and disappear. That's how these things work. But she kept pushing, kept demanding tests, kept making everything public." The detective leaned forward. "So you decided to make her stop?" "I decided to manage the situation. By putting her life at risk?" Sloane's face twisted. "Not guilt. Anger. I wanted the company. I wanted the mansion. I wanted everything I'd earned by keeping Grant functional for 3 years. Paige was in the way." Her lawyer's face went pale. "Sloane, stop talking." But Sloane kept going. "Grant was weak. He couldn't make decisions. He couldn't handle pressure. I did everything. I built that empire while he fell apart over a genetic mutation he was too scared to manage. And then Paige got pregnant and ruined everything." Paige watched through the glass, her chest tight. Sloane didn't see her as a person. She saw her as an obstacle, problem to solve. The detective pulled up another file. "What about the private medical facility? The one tied to Grant's investments? Did you take him there the night of the gala?" Sloane smiled. "Not warmth, just control. I took him where he needed to go. To Paige's house?" Sloane's smile widened. "Grant wanted to be close to her, even when he couldn't remember why. I just facilitated." Paige felt sick. Sloane was describing intimacy like it was a transaction. Like Grant's body was a tool she'd used to manipulate the situation. The detective looked at Sloane's lawyer. "Your client just admitted to facilitating non-consensual contact. That's a crime." Sloane finally realized what she'd done. Her face changed. The calm disappeared. Panic took over. "I didn't. That's not what I meant." Her lawyer stood. "This interview is over." But it was too late. Sloane had said enough. The detective had everything he needed. As they led Sloane out, she looked around the room like she was searching for an exit that didn't exist. She'd spent months controlling every variable, managing every risk. But she'd forgotten one thing. She couldn't control the truth once it came out. Sloane admits she wanted the company and the mansion, but says the fixer was the one who handled Paige's medical side. Grant signed away power with a hand that wouldn't stop shaking. The final meeting happened in a law office downtown. Paige sat with her lawyer. Grant sat with his. The documents were already prepared. All he had to do was sign. "This finalizes the protected trust," Paige's lawyer explained. "Full medical coverage for both children, lifetime. Education trust fully funded." housing support until the children turn 18. And Mr. Grant agrees to step down as CEO effective immediately. Grant picked up the pen. His hand shook so badly he almost dropped it. He signed the first page, then the second, then the third. Should Paige attend the funeral later, if that day comes, yes or no, and why? When he was done, he set the pen down and looked at Paige. I'm leaving the company. The board's installing new leadership. I'm also leaving the country for a while. Treatment for the mutation. There's a facility in Europe that specializes in early intervention. Paige nodded but didn't speak. Grant continued. I'm setting up a public pledge. Funding for genetic research. Money for families dealing with rare conditions. It won't fix what I did, but maybe it'll help someone else. That's good, Paige said quietly. Grant's lawyer handed Paige a folder. These are the resignation documents. The company released a statement this morning. It's vague, but it confirms Mr. Grant is stepping down for personal reasons. Paige opened her phone and pulled up the news. The headline read, Tech CEO Grant resigns amid personal health crisis. No mention of the paternity case. No mention of Sloan. No mention of any of it. Just a sanitized version that protected what was left of Grant's reputation. Grant stood to leave. Paige stood too. They met in the hallway outside the conference room. No lawyers. No security. Just the two of them. I did love you, Grant whispered. Paige looked at him. Really looked at him. She saw the exhaustion. The regret. The truth he'd carried for too long. Love doesn't do this, she said. But her eyes betrayed pain. Because part of her still remembered the man he used to be. The man who made her coffee in the morning. The man who held her when she couldn't sleep. That man was gone. Maybe he'd never been real. Grant nodded. I know. He turned to walk away. Paige watched him go. She didn't call him back. Didn't offer comfort. Didn't forgive. She just let him leave. Back in the conference room, her lawyer handed her a final document. The trust is active. The accounts are funded. You and the girls are secure. Legally. Financially. You did it. Paige nodded. But she didn't feel victorious. She just felt tired. That night, Paige sat in her apartment with the twins sleeping in their bassinets. She was scrolling through her phone, looking at nothing, when a breaking news alert popped up. Grant Alexander, former tech CEO, found dead at 38. Paige's heart stopped. She clicked the article. The details were sparse. Grant had been found unresponsive at his home. Authorities suspected a medical episode related to his genetic condition. No foul play suspected. Paige stared at the screen, her hands shaking. She read the article 3 times, trying to make sense of it. Grant was dead. The man who'd betrayed her. The man who'd protected her once. The father of her children. Gone. She didn't know how to feel. Grief. Anger. Relief. Sadness. Everything at once. Her phone buzzed with messages. Her lawyer. Her aunt. Friends she hadn't talked to in months. Everyone asking if she was okay. Paige didn't answer. She just sat there, holding her phone, staring at the twins. They'd never know their father. They'd grow up with stories but no memories. And Paige would have to decide how much truth to tell them. Paige prepares to leave the U.S. quietly, but a breaking news alert pings on her phone about Grant. The news didn't say tragic first. It said, unexpected. The funeral happened 3 days later. Private. Small. Paige didn't go. She sent flowers. White roses. No card. Just flowers. She watched the news coverage from her apartment. Twins sleeping beside her. The reporters talked about Grant's career. His accomplishments. His philanthropy. They mentioned his genetic condition briefly. They didn't mention the court case. Or Sloan. Or any of it. Just a clean, simple story about a man who died too young. Paige felt numb. Not sad. Not angry. Just empty. Her lawyer called that afternoon. Sloan's been charged. Medical privacy violations. Conspiracy. She's looking at jail time. Web 2. They're both cooperating now, trying to reduce their sentences. Good, Paige said. But the word felt hollow. There's something else, her lawyer continued. Grant's estate left a final provision, a separate fund for genetic research. It's substantial, and it's in the twins' names. He set it up the day before he died. Paige closed her eyes. Even at the end, Grant was trying to make it right. It didn't erase what he'd done, but it was something. 2 weeks later, Paige left the country. She didn't tell many people where she was going. Just her lawyer, her aunt, a few close friends. She packed up the apartment, hired movers, and bought plane tickets. She relocated to a small city in Europe. Quiet, safe, affordable, far from tabloids and courtrooms and people who knew her story. She found a small apartment near a park. She enrolled in a remote degree program to finish the career plans she'd put on hold. She built a routine. Mornings with the twins, afternoons studying, evenings walking through the city, pushing the stroller, feeling anonymous and free. If this story hit you, tap like. Stories like this only spread when you push them. The twins grew. They learned to smile, to laugh, to reach for her when they woke up scared. They didn't know about the court battle, about the betrayal, about the father who died before they could meet him. Paige told them simple stories. Your daddy loved you. He just couldn't stay. It wasn't the full truth, but it was enough for now. Subscribe if you want more courtroom twists with real consequences and clean, original storytelling. One night, Paige sat by the window watching the city lights. She thought about Grant. Not the man who'd hurt her, but the man she'd met 7 years ago. The one who'd brought her coffee in bed. The one who'd danced with her in the kitchen at midnight. She let herself remember the first time he touched her. Patient, reverent, like she was something precious. She let herself cry for that man. Not the one who tried to erase her, but the one who'd existed before fear and control took over. She cried for what could have been, for the life they'd never have, for the father her daughters would never know. Then she dried her tears, checked on the sleeping twins, and went to bed. Share this with someone who needs a reminder. Dignity is not a bargaining chip. Paige didn't win by destroying Grant's life. She didn't win by exposing everyone. She didn't win by revenge. She won by surviving, by protecting her daughters, by refusing to let anyone, not Grant, not Sloane, not fear, make her smaller than she was. She won by walking away with her dignity intact. Final question. Was Paige right to leave quietly, or should she have exposed everything? Answer with one sentence. Years later, when the twins asked about their father, Paige would tell them the truth. Not all of it, but enough. She'd tell them he was complicated, that he made mistakes, that he tried to fix them at the end, and that sometimes love isn't enough to save people from themselves. But tonight, she just held them close and whispered promises she intended to keep. I'll keep you safe. I'll give you a good life. And I'll never let anyone make you feel small. Paige didn't win by taking his life apart. She won by refusing to let her own become one. Thanks for watching to the end, family. See you next time.